Of Tuesday, June 14, 2020. I call the meeting to order and to let everyone know that we had been meeting since 6:30 in executive session, which is now we're returning to open session for the rest of the evenings, following the rest of the evening's agenda. As we do, beginning all meetings, if everyone would join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And always, as we open our meetings, we read the Wakefield Public Schools mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Item number 6 on the agenda is public comment. Any member of the public, either here in the studio or at home or elsewhere on Zoom, is welcome to address the committee at this time on any topic. Do we have any members here in the studio or at home or anywhere? Seeing none, we shall move along. Thank you. Item number 7, Student Advisory Council. We have new student advisory representatives. Of course, we may remember that our last meeting we thanked and congratulated and appreciated the work of our then graduating seniors who are now alumni, really, I guess, right? And we're prepared enthusiastically to welcome our new student representatives for the new school year. So, Dr. Lyons, we can sort of tee us up for introductions.
Yeah, Ms. Traficante is joining us tonight to do introductions.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Geraldine.
How are you? So we have two newly elected school committee representatives. One of them I think is on Zoom and one may be in studio. So we have Vanessa Westlake, who is on Zoom, and we have Lauren Mangiarelli, who I believe is in studio. They're going to tell you a little bit about themselves, and then their plan tonight is to kind of watch Molly and Bella to see how this all goes so that they can know when they have to jump onto future meetings.
Great.
So Vanessa and Lauren, if you want to introduce yourselves and maybe tell them what grade you're in and a little bit about, what you do at the high school, that'd be awesome.
I'm Laura Mangarelli. I'm in 10th grade and I do marching band, winter percussion, and track and field.
Great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Vanessa Westlake. I'm going to be a junior next year, and I'm a part of the marching band, and I currently work at the BB Library.
Great. Well, certainly welcome to both of you. Congratulations on your election as school committee representatives. We look forward to meeting with you and hearing from you each month or whatever rotation you guys decide. But congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And we have some other members with us. Are you prepared to share some end-of-year thoughts with us?
Yeah, I'm going to start us off with some academic updates. So firstly, final assessments are going to start Tuesday through next Friday at the high school. And Principal McLeod has shared the schedule for the week with families in her last update over the weekend. The next piece of academic news is that report cards for the high school will be posted in iPass by July 1st. And I'm going to pass it over to Bella for some other news.
Thanks, Molly. So for athletics and other activities, Warrior Pride Night took place last night, where 8th grade students could come see what sports and activities the high school has to offer. It went very well. All 8 Wakefield High School spring sports teams qualified for the MIAA state tournament this year. And for some school news and timely happenings, we welcome the 8th graders from Galvin this week for student tours around the building. Their excitement was so fun to see. They'll be welcomed back for freshman orientation on August 24th. And that's it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Anyone, any school committee members have any thoughts or comments to share? Dr. Piscatello.
Just want to welcome our new members. Excited to always have people join us and, really encourage you, if there are issues or things that you would like to bring up or comment on, please do. I think the updates are great and they're really, really helpful. But at the same time, we definitely want to hear a student perspective on issues if you feel like there are things that you want to share. So please feel empowered to do so, along with updating us on all the great things that are going on academically and extracurricularly as well. So, but welcome to all of you that are joining us, and thank you for your service for those that are finishing up.
Tom, could I speak for just a moment?
Certainly, Mike.
So as part of our process, you'll hear tonight that we're going to decide what subcommittees we're on, or at least have a discussion. But we also will be discussing liaison roles. And just so you guys are aware, everybody wants to be on the youth council. And pretty much everybody put that one down. So of course it can't be everybody. So I'm not sure, we'll see who the lucky one is tonight. But everybody enjoys hearing from all of you. So thanks for all you do for us.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you again, and welcome aboard, and have a great summer. If we don't see you June 28th, but awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 8, consent agenda. We're going to be withdrawing from tonight's agenda the minutes of May 24. We will not be reviewing and approving those tonight. We'll be doing so at the next meeting. So no action there tonight. However, we do have the acceptance of a gift, and we have a motion. Ms. Newman.
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude a gift of $1,000 from the Friends of the Wakefield Memorial High School Girls Hockey Boosters for the purpose of supporting the compensation of the coaching staff.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Very good. Okay, item 9, chairs, comments, and updates. I want to move quickly through some of these if possible, although I know some of them we want to be able to also take our time on. So I'm going to not have any comments or updates in general. Moving right to item B, discussion on school safety protocols and procedures. I think we're all, not only here in the school committee, but in our community and around our country, aware of the terrible instances that have occurred, instances of violence and gun violence that's been perpetrated again and again on schools throughout our nation. And I think it's only appropriate that we have, as a community, a conversation around the type of things that, one, we all need to know and remember how important this is, that we stay on top of it, that we stay in tune, we stay aware, we stay cognizant, we stay vigilant to make sure that our schools are as safe as they possibly can be, not only for our students, but of course for our employees and staff. There's been a lot of talk around our community about the types of safety that does exist in the schools, what are some protocols, and I just thought, the superintendent and I were talking the other day, and we just thought it might be entirely appropriate to have this conversation now, tonight, to be able to share with the community where we are in our, not only as a school community, but our very, very tight partnership with the Wakefield Police Department and with community policing, and to be able to have conversations about what we may seek to do differently, or what we may seek to improve as a community, but certainly to let everyone know that there is nothing more important than the safety of our students and the safety of our buildings. With that as sort of an opening thoughts, I'd like to welcome the police chief who's joining us tonight. Chief Scory, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight and to share thoughts and to share some remarks that you have. But I'd like to ask the superintendent sort of to begin this conversation and discussion on where we're at. Thank you.
Absolutely. Chief, thanks for joining us tonight. Much appreciated. And so when we were notified, when we learned about the events that transpired in Texas, we were in touch with the police straight away. We reconvened our district safety and crisis team to really think very clearly about measures that we needed to take to make sure that students felt safe at school. Chief Scory and his group were really amazing at making sure that there was a police presence the next morning at all of our schools. In the morning, they walked the buildings. They were also there so they were there for arrival and dismissal at all 7 of our schools. There was also a greater presence of our SROs throughout the day, which was greatly appreciated. And Chief and I had talked about that, probably at 5:30 in the morning before the school day started. So their flexibility and ability to kind of pivot and just to let people know that they are there was really, I think, made people feel safe. So I'd like to thank them for their quick response. In regard to other things that took place that week, so on that Wednesday morning, we canceled professional development and for any personnel that was going out of the district to keep counselors in buildings and to keep groups together. We wanted to make sure that we dedicated time and resources, counseling resources, for any questions that students may have had and questions that faculty may have had as well. So since that time, we've gotten 3 or 4 public announcements out to the community. Chief and Tom Walsh put an announcement out in the second week, just kind of updating the community about collaborative drills that we had done back in October, which was an active shooter drill here at the high school that included the police, the fire, and school personnel. And so we feel like the drilling that we're doing as collaborative teams, I think, is as current as it has been since I've been here. We have not been as active because of COVID at the school levels. But I do think this has been a prompt for our school administrators, our teachers, and our teacher teams to review protocols individually as individual teachers, as teacher teams, and as grade level teams. And I know that some schools are working on modified drills at this point in the year. When I say modified drills, a modified drill would look like a shelter in place that would lead to a lockdown, just to get people active into that space. We do have students that are new to schools and where they've had interrupted schedules due to COVID. So this we feel like is a good entry point in regard to teaching and training. And we will pick up on our drill and training calendar in the fall as well. I also know that the Chief and I have touched base several times just around, the response from the police and how we would collaborate here in the event that something like that happened. I can turn it over to him to add more about that, but I will tell you, I feel very fortunate that the police are so accessible. Several of our officers have children in our schools and have made themselves available along with our SROs to literally just walk schools, meet teachers, and meet students. And I think their presence has been welcomed. And so we need to thank them for that. But I can turn it over to you, Chief, if you'd like to add a perspective.
Thanks, Doug. Anytime, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Anytime there's an unfortunate incident like the school shooting in Texas, it hits all of us hard. Most everybody at the police department has kids. So we know that the impact events like this have on children, staff, parents. So we want to make sure that the following day and for the couple of days that follow, that we make them feel safe when they get to school. School is supposed to be an environment where kids and staff feel safe, right? We want parents to feel like they can, we want them to make sure that they feel good about leaving their children at the schools. So that's why we increased our presence in the few days after the events in Texas. And hopefully it had a positive effect. Hopefully it was positive with the children. I know I spent some time down at the Dole there in the afternoon, day following. The kids are great. The little kids are awesome. high fives and smiles. You can't get enough of it. I want to talk a little bit about training, the police training that we do. Columbine, school shooting in Columbine in 1999 put school shootings on the map. And we really had no training whatsoever in how to respond to these incidents back then. And because of some mistakes that were made, the way that whole situation unfolded, the Municipal Police Training Council here in Massachusetts started doing some type of active shooter training. And that was our first introduction to it. And for those of us who've been around long enough, back December 26, 2000, we had a mass shooting here in Wakefield. And it was because of the training that we had from the Municipal Police Training Council that our officers responded the way they did and were able to bring that situation to an end, without anybody else getting hurt. Over the years, we've improved the training. We've studied other shooting incidents. That's how we get better, as we have to, unfortunately, you'll learn from every incident. Our active shooter training really took off in 2011. We made it a part of our own inside the department training. We spent 8 hours on it. We do it every year, and it's grown over the years. Now we incorporate the fire department, the school department, the local ambulance company, and it's a very sophisticated response that we have. We feel well prepared. We purchased the right equipment over the years. Our equipment is in every cruiser. We're prepared to respond to anything. I think that when you look at school protocols, there's been a shift from, originally it was lockdown and wait, right? And now we've moved to ALICE. And I'm an ALICE instructor. I went through the instructor program. And when you go through the instructor program, you experience a lockdown, and then you experience what ALICE is. And I can tell you that I have full confidence that ALICE is a major improvement. I know it's practiced in the schools. It saves lives. So I think I have full confidence in the ALICE program, and I have all the confidence in the world in our officers to respond to any kind of situation.
Chief, would you explain what that ALICE program is? Some people may not know.
Sure. It's an acronym that stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Escape. So the first part of that is you alert everybody in the school to whatever the situation is. Lockdown, teachers are taught how to lock down a classroom. Continually inform everybody with updates. Counter means that if your room is breached, that you counter by distracting a shooter by throwing objects, whatever you can do, and then escape. If you have the opportunity to escape, you escape. The original lockdown procedures were just hide in a closet, get under your desk, and wait, and it doesn't work. So with your typical shooter, they're looking to do the most amount of damage in the shortest period of time. So when you lock down a room, if the door is locked, typically they'll just move along to the next door. If that's locked, they'll just keep moving along. So priority number one is lock it down, barricade the door as much as you can with whatever you can find to do that with.
Thank you.
So I think I could add there, this is an active decision-making process that teachers have the ability to kind of go through, where if they're unsure where a threat is in the building, then they would lock down a barricade and counter if someone breached the room. But we've also kind of done, through our collaborative training, we know that these events take between 3 and 6 minutes from start to finish, right? And so in regard to the threat and the harm that is inflicted by personnel that do this. So, we are trying to take away time and space, and if we have an understanding where someone is in a building, and if they are, if it's reported that someone's in the other end of a building, and a teacher feels like they can take a group and get out of the building, they have the ability to make those decisions. Whereas in the past, Mike, it was a static drill. You were locking the door and hoping that no one came through. This is different, right? This is different, and it's something that we feel like is a better iteration. If we can, I feel funny even using that term, a better iteration for, an active shooter in a school, which seems, hard to process, but.
Yeah,
Kevin?
I'm interested to hear the chief's perspective on this, because I'm a teacher, and one thing we always talk about, especially after the shooting, is with Alice, is how do we know whether we just lock down and prepare to counter or just run? You know, like if you think the active shooter's on the other end of the building, do we go down this stairwell and just jet? So I was wondering if it would make sense to maybe have some communication. You know, I'm not saying, you know, the police come in and be like, you know, grab all the teachers, be like, okay, in this situation, do this. I know so many of these things is so fluid, but I do know just on the ground, a lot of teachers really are like, well, like, what would you do in this situation? So, you know, maybe there's some way we can kind of have a discussion or, you know, something just so we would know, in this case, we run down the stairwell. In this case, you know, we
Yeah, there's a number of reasons why people may not evacuate.
Yeah.
Right? They may have a student that can't move quickly, or they might not be able to move as quickly themselves. And so, you know, or they may not be sure where the threat is. So for any of those reasons, you would lock down a barricade.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no, you know, so if when in doubt, or if you don't have information, we drill to, you would, if you don't have information that makes you feel secure in your decision making, then you would lock down a barricade, right? And so lock down a barricade, you're trying to take away time and space. And if anyone comes through that door, you're continuing to take away time and space, you know, and so that's the short answer. I think Chief could add to that.
No, I think that's a great answer to that question. Of course, the circumstances of every incident are different, so there's no concrete answer to give there. Obviously, there's things you take into consideration. Where are you in the building? What are you doing at the time that the incident occurs? What kind of class are you in? Is it on the first floor, second floor? Do the windows open? Do they not open? What do you hear? You know, other than the information that's being shared with you, what is it that your own senses are telling you? Can you hear gunshots close by? Do they sound like they're off in the distance? You know, it's a lot of information that you'll be taking in quickly. So the best protocol to follow is to follow the Alice protocol. If you can lock down your room, secure yourself in that room, move everybody away from the door, prepare yourself with items. You know, one of the questions I had with Alice was, how will a group of third graders respond to a counter? And the answer was from the instructor, you know, no matter what the age, kids are resilient. And if you tell kids to pick up staplers and pencils and pens and notebooks and whatever it is and throw it, they will throw it. So very difficult question to answer there because the circumstances are always different, but follow the protocols. The Alice program was developed after the shooting at Virginia Tech. There was a huge study done on the Virginia Tech shooting where they found was that most of the casualties occurred in a room where the room was not barricaded. Everybody they shut the door and got underneath their desks, and basically they didn't resist, they didn't try to escape, they were sitting ducks. So the Alice protocol was developed the way it was for a reason, and I believe that it's the most effective system we have.
Thank you.
Yes, Kevin.
Just really quick, I'm really happy to hear that we've adopted Alice. I'm a certified trainer as well at my college, and one of the things we do is, you know, require either faculty or staff to go through kind of this, pretty much the training we did. The scenarios are really jarring, but it's very interesting and it's very empowering. You know, I think when you go through them, and as Chief said, that first one where you're just doing the traditional lockdown is harrowing, and you really see how inefficient it is. What is kind of the rollout in terms of Alice, like in the schools, in terms of, you know, new teachers coming in or other staff who, you know, would benefit from being, you know, trained in this?
So it's in the fall, or in a normal school year, or even right now, what we've done is, you know, all teachers have kind of revisited protocols that are in place now. In the fall, we will kind of get right back at it, where our crisis manuals that we have and our Alice drilling will start with teachers individually, teachers on team. So teachers will work with one another to support one another. We'll do training at the school levels, and then we will roll it out. Teachers first, kids second. And so that's the plan. And the district safety and crisis team will kind of oversee that and the police are part of our district safety and crisis team. So we advise them, they advise us. We also collaborate with fire as well, and EMTs as well. So
Great.
that's what we're looking at, Kevin.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other, Stephen?
I'm curious, Chief, in terms of like the familiarity that the department has with the various school buildings, do you conduct sort of walkthroughs, like maybe when it's during the summer, maybe when there are less students in some of the buildings, or just to get some real physical sort of presence in the space and not just rely on maybe a 2D floor plan?
No, we do. We have done some of our drills in our public schools, not all of them. What we do make sure of is that if somebody who works for the police department did not attend one of those schools, that we do a walkthrough. We have the SROs take them through the school. Most important things to learn are, the gymnasium, the cafeteria, anywhere where there might be somebody would tend to go to cause a mass casualty. But we do try to familiarize everybody with the facilities.
Great. In that same vein, I know you rely on your radios for sort of situational presence. Any issues with sort of our building makeups? I mean, it's a lot of sort of concrete, brick, and steel. Have there been any challenges that you've come into in our buildings?
So the one thing that we found in every major incident, and if you talk to anybody around the country, it's the same thing. The first thing to fail is communications. There's tremendous chatter on the radios. Brick buildings do have an effect on transmissions. I know that there are a few dead spots in the high school, but most of our problems were up at the vocational school, which we were able to rectify with another repeater up there. But within the Wakefield Public Schools, not too many issues. The one thing to keep in mind is that when you have an active situation like this, because of what has occurred in the building, the smoke alarms have activated, the sprinklers have activated, there's screaming, there's yelling, there's complete chaos. So communications are extremely difficult just because of the surrounding noise.
That's actually a question I was going to ask is what's the plan to communicate with teachers if there was some sort of emergency like this, where how are teachers supposed to know what's going on, like in regards to the Alice drills? Like, is it safe to get out because they heard on the radio, or there was an email, or there was a text message that it was on this side of the building, or is there a communication protocol that's how the teachers in each room are supposed to know what's going on at that moment?
Yeah, and so the way that we drill is that there would be an announcement, there's an intruder in the building, and then we would go into our Alice lockdown procedure.
Okay, and then teachers don't have any communication?
Well, I mean,
at that point after that,
they sometimes, if possible, there are updates that can come.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are not. The chief hit it right on the head. If you kind of research, or if you pay attention to the data and what's happening, sometimes there's a lot of communication. Sometimes there's not enough. So yeah.
Any other questions or comments for either the chief or the superintendent?
I guess my only other question
Amy.
for extended school year, where we do have students in the building in the summer, and I don't know if they practice these same kind of drills, and that's kind of our most vulnerable population, where I think they would have the most anxiety about these drills. And could that be an opportunity for an added, but a police officer, a resource officer to come in and actually talk to them during that time when they are in?
It's a great idea. And I think, I want to say that everyone who's running our summer programs are Wakefield teachers, right? Who are in their buildings. They know the buildings, so they know what to do in the event that something like that happened. But training with different students and different adults, and including our SROs, is a great idea and something we could absolutely do.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief, very much for joining us and sharing. I know this is, as I mentioned at the beginning, a topic that has been discussed at great length over the years, and certainly in the last month with the tragedies, but we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to to appreciate the types of protocols and procedures that are in place, and let folks know that it's something that is very much on our thoughts and in our planning on a daily basis. So, thank you, Chief, very much for your time tonight, and I'm sure we'll see you again.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, moving on, item 9C, subcommittees. You have in your material, I guess what's subcommittee assignments. I want to thank all the members for providing a couple of rounds of ideas and what you may want to do, areas of interest for subcommittees, and what your priorities were. We worked pretty hard to make sure that everyone got at least their first choice, because at the end of the day, if you're not working in an area that you have of interest and of concern, or you have some particular focus, I want to obviously make sure that that's capturing your heart and mind. So I think we were able to give everyone first and almost everyone second choices. So the committee it's at its discretion at this point to either vote to approve these assignments, or if you wanted to think about them and wait until next time, that's certainly at the committee's discretion. Any consensus one way or the other? Anyone have concerns about the assignments, or anyone disappointed, or want to turn it into a paper airplane and throw it at me or something? How dare you? So I guess absent that, is there a motion?
Move that the school committee approve the subcommittee assignments as presented and charge each subcommittee to meet in compliance with open meeting law as necessary to address the matters under its guidance and/or as requested by the school committee, and to present regular reports and recommendations to the full school committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you again. These assignments will be effective immediately. So if there is any end of year, sort of work, I know a couple committees are changing, almost wholesale. So certainly any committees wanted to get together to discuss anything for thinking or goal setting over the summer, or work to meet with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, please, the subcommittee chairs, do not hesitate to reach out to your members to see if you'd like to do that. Obviously, keep the superintendent and I informed on how things, are progressing. But with only one meeting left in this fiscal year, there's certainly no expectation around, time in the next couple weeks to
I have a
rush to
question.
something. Yeah.
How does the public know? Is this posted somewhere?
Well, it won't be. It will be tomorrow morning.
Oh, it will be.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
No, this
Thank you.
isn't posted. Yep. The next thing is the liaison assignments, as I had mentioned in an email to all of us, and Mike sort of spilled the beans from that email, that we had an overabundance of interest in one liaison assignment. So this isn't one of those things, at least my gut instinct isn't to just make assignments, although if that's the committee's direction to me, then we'll do that. We need to fill these. There are expectations for other boards in town that the school committee be heard at the table. So I'm just going to put it out sort of one more time. If you've really got an interest in one of these, I want to make sure that that's the right match. And absent that, I suppose I would then just make assignments. Is that fair? Okay. So there were no liaison assignments tonight, but let me know. Give it another good set of thoughts. Okay, 9E, review of the summer schedule and the draft school committee meeting schedule for next year. Also, you have that material with a set of dates prepared for prepared for our meeting schedule for fiscal year 23, which begins July 1. And the summer meeting schedule, let me just cover that first. The superintendent and I had been talking about what the summers might look like for the administration, as well as to prepare for the type of needs that the school committee may have, at least as far as being informed, as well as making decisions regarding the opening of school. So we're prepared to recommend that we have one meeting in July, on Tuesday, July 12, which sort of cuts the month in half, if you will. And then two meetings in August, on the 16th and the 30th, as the summer meeting schedule. If we needed to have other meetings, whether they be special meetings of any kind or labor relations matters, as we know, we've got contracts that are bubbling over. We may need to spill into the summer for some of that. So special meetings may be called as needed, but if that summer schedule seems to work for folks, that's the recommendation that we're putting out there. And then you have the rest of the fiscal year in front of you as well. September, in the routine would be getting back to the 2 meetings per month, with the exception of December, recommending the way the holidays, the end of December winter holidays fall. We're recommending 1 meeting in December, on Tuesday, December 13. The next thing that gets, I suppose, interesting is how we tripped around this past spring. And the recommendation here is that we sort of solidify that up front, so we're not changing meetings too many times in real time, and people can actually plan on it. So April, suggesting 2 meetings in April, April 4 and 11. The 3rd week of April, obviously, is school vacation week, which we've tried to avoid, and the 4th Tuesday of the month of April, as we all know, is the town election, which we've also tried to avoid. So the recommendation here is to the first 2 meetings in April, 4 and 11, and then to pick up the pace with what the committee did this month, except for May, except not try to have a meeting a week, seeming like almost a meeting a day, to exaggerate a little bit, but to put in place what May might look like, so we're not sort of scrambling. I don't know if you guys thought, but I felt a little scrambling. Every meeting we're talking about when we're going to have meetings, and then we're adding meetings, and then we're moving all over the calendar, and our dear friend Ms. Wall was spot on in bringing up, well, you people got to be consistent, and we do have to be consistent. So hopefully if we can put a calendar out that has a year in advance, even though we're bouncing around a little between the 2nd and 4th, we won't be sort of pulling folks by surprise. So, again, at the committee's discretion, we can either adopt this tonight or think about it and compare personal calendars. Obviously, it needs to work for the 7 of us and the administration. It is our meeting schedule, so it needs to obviously not fly in the face of when people aren't around. So if the committee is comfortable voting tonight, we certainly can. If not, we can wait till next meeting and do it then. Anyone have a sense of, want to wait?
I'm fine with moving ahead with a vote.
Okay. We all good? Okay. So,
just a question.
Yes, Stephen.
Just a question on May 2nd. Normally that would have perhaps been the 9th and the 23rd, but we're moving it up 1 week just because we pushed April up because of vacation and election. So we're getting back to it sooner in May and then immediately switching back to the fourth Tuesday.
That's the goal that we came up with the calendar play. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Motion, Ms. Lehman.
Move that the school committee approve the FY23 school committee meeting scheduled as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have one.
Yes.
I didn't have time. None of these fall on any particular holidays that others might recognize.
So I can't say that universally.
Okay.
They don't fall on what may be considered school calendar holidays.
Okay.
But I can't say that universally.
It's more religious type holidays. Okay.
So we may want to, with that in mind, that is an excellent point. So with that in mind, I'm going to recommend that we take this off the vote tonight, and we will revisit that to make, maybe you and I can do that together.
Yeah, sorry,
cool?
I didn't mean to.
No. Amy, I think it's a perfect concern. It's an absolutely valid concern, perfect concern. We did the best we could looking at a calendar, but I think we could probably expand our look at religious and cultural holidays to make sure we're supportive of that. Excellent point, thank you. So with that in mind, and without objection, we'll remove this from tonight's vote, and we'll make sure that we're supporting the cultural and religious needs of our community. Okay. Because I wanted to get on to the rest of the agenda, I'm going to, we'll move off item 9F, which is discussion on summer professional development retreat. So I'll push that, take that off the agenda, push that to next time as well. 9D is to inform the community and the public that it will be our intention. We have 2 administrator contracts to review in the next coming weeks and months. That is the renewal of the superintendent's contract and the renewal of the school business administrator's contract. We'll be having at least a meeting or 2 before June is over to discuss both of those matters, and then have a full report to the committee and possibly a vote, depending on how the committee feels at the June 28th meeting. Okay, but those 2 administrator contracts are to be discussed and up for renewal. Okay, that is moving through the chair's comments and thoughts. So moving on, item 10, superintendent's remarks and reports. Dr. Lyons.
Thank you very much. With the permission of the chair, I'd like to take B ahead of A, so that people are waiting in our audience and on Zoom can share kind of the work that they've done, and they can kind of get on with their evening. So just to kind of update the committee before I turn it over to Ms. McLeod and Will Cavanaris, we created, the Policy and Communication Subcommittee created a logo policy more than a year ago, right? And so first there was a resolution, and then Policy and Communication said, to make this, to kind of outline a process by which we can use and others can use a process to kind of renew or to update a current logo or to select a logo. So there was a new policy that was created. That policy can be accessed on our school website. If you go to policies, it's, I want to say, policy number 1111. So that's a quick update. And so if you'd like to reference that. So a committee was formed, and kind of the work that they had done was guided by that policy. And so a committee was formed with a group of about 18 people. And so we had about 9 or 10 students. Many of them are with us here tonight. We had 4 or 5 educators on the group. Amy McLeod led the group along with Will Cavanaris. Will was the facilitator. It's kind of a great choice. Will has a kind of really a gift in that space. So I think it was a great choice to bring Will in. Joe Mullaney and Geraldine also supported this, along with Brendan Kent, who's here with us in studio tonight. And so we had community members, Julie Scott, Amy Wall, Elena Corradino, and David Workman, who were also part of the group. But what I'd like to do is just to kind of turn it over to Amy McLeod so she can summarize, along with Will Cavanaris, so that they can summarize kind of the work that took place on this committee. Amy, can you hear me?
I can. Can you guys hear me? Yep. Good evening, everybody. I'll start by talking about the next slide, if WCAT can put that up, which is our process and timeline. So we, as Dr. Lyons said, we followed the policy to try to think about first outreach. So we began by putting together a few forums. We did a student forum on December 15th to try to elicit some input from our student body. And then we did a community forum a few weeks after that, after the holidays, on Zoom, which Will facilitated to try to get some input from the community around what they were looking for, attributes of the warrior, and what they were really looking for in a new logo. Once we did that, we then established our committees. As Doug said, there were about 18 people on that committee. We weren't able to all be there consistently. Everybody's so busy, but we tried to find times that the most people could be present at, and we balanced as the policy says that we need to, focusing on having the majority of people on that committee being students. Then we also had representation from the Wakefield faculty, staff and administrators, from the high school, and then the community members who are in the studio tonight. So we had 3 meetings that took place in February. And so I'll turn it over to the next slide and ask Will to talk a little bit about the meetings.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. The first meeting that we had was on February 1. We talked about the overview and the purpose of what the committee's work actually was, what the school committee had asked us to do, and our purpose there. We reviewed the input that we received from the community and the student forums, and then we really talked about what the attributes of a warrior were. On February 9th, we established a protocol to have a solid conversation about some of the possibilities that were on the table, because this was an important community and student-based decision. We reviewed some logos and logos ideas, and then for our next meeting, which was our last meeting on February 16th, we reviewed additional logos, and every person who served in the committee gave input. And we had a process where we reviewed and narrowed it down to 3. There we go.
Thank you, Will. And so then, sorry that the slide is a little funky. I don't know what's going on. But there are 3 final recommendations that came from the committee. The interesting part I thought at the end was that there was a lot of consensus around moving these options forward. Folks thought that each of them had different attributes that they represented. Certainly some people on the committee were more wed to some than others. I think that happens with any committee. But the idea was that we wanted to have some options that we could move forward that we thought met overall the spirit of the logo that represented the warrior in a way that we had heard from the input from both students and community members, and decided by tallying votes at that last meeting together that these were the 3 that rose to the top to move forward. And so you see them in front of you. One of these was designed by a student. One of these options was designed by a faculty member working off of a different logo. And then a third option was designed by a community member. So I thought that the final result was a good representative of everybody who was on the committee. And we forwarded these to Superintendent Lyons shortly after our meetings had wrapped up, perhaps at the end of February, beginning of March, so that then they could get to you for this conversation tonight. And I think that's it for right now.
Amy, a question. Sure. Were there any people who wanted to be on the committee that just because of sheer numbers they were not able to?
No, I don't believe so. We solicited, we reached out to students in lots of ways because we needed the most students on. Again, the majority had to be students. So I think we did a lot of outreach through email, through social media, through going to classrooms, through going to student council meetings, just trying to reach as many students as we could. So no, everybody who wanted to be on the committee, I believe, was on the committee.
And next question, if I could ask you, only because this isn't my area of expertise, could you go through each of them and kind of explain what they are? It looks like the first one is the gazebo. Is that correct or not? I don't know. Yep.
Yep. So option one, again, the slides don't show. It should be option 1 is on the left, option 2 is on the top right, and option 3 is on the bottom. Option 1 does show the gazebo. There is a the W is similar to the traditional W that a lot of students have been using on uniforms that represents the warriors. There was some conversation about whether or not to impose warrior over this logo, but it kind of ended up staying that way. The other interesting point about this one is that actually a community member helped the student work on this, and one of our art teachers actually helped improve the design of it as well. So there was a lot of collaboration on that one. Option 2 is a logo that's been utilized by a couple of faculty members, worked with the athletics department to work on this one. It is an adaptation of the Ohio State logo. It has a more traditional W that we're seeing a lot of our teams gravitate toward, and they superimposed the warrior symbol over it, using the large to small, so it looks more of like an arch. I know this is not a great picture of it, I apologize, but I was sort of cutting and pasting a screenshot. So it's a little out of whack there on the right, but it doesn't normally look concise like that. And the third one, there's actually a community member who I believe is in studio who worked on this. And there was a nod to the families, the general Galvin with the star and the eagle's wings, and also the use of the W. And then what people really liked about this one was that the name Warriors was actually on the symbol as well, like the second one. And I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I recall from the conversations at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, if I could, just in recognition, first of all, thank you to the committee for this recommendation and for the work that you've done over the course of the last handful of months. But we've obviously have an opportunity to hear from Amy and Will, but we also invited purposely any of the committee members to join us tonight, and I know that they're here, some of them, and I'd like to invite any or all of the committee members to the table. If you have thoughts to share or recommendations to make or concerns to express, both the obviously community members as well as some of the students. I want to make sure that this is a real opportunity for folks to share their thoughts and the work of the committee.
Hi, everybody.
So-
My name is Julie Scott. I was on the committee, and thank you for having us here tonight. One thing I wanted to mention was when we were meeting at I believe it was our first meeting, we came up with a list of attributes which were not shared with you tonight. And it's important for you to know that one of them was inclusivity, another was pride, strength, unify, leadership, perseverance, excellence, and it needed to represent Wakefield. And that's what we all agreed on very early on in the process. So as you take a look at those three, I think, in my humble opinion, 2 stand out and 2 are new. And I think it's really important that whatever we choose in the spirit of the entire process and in the spirit of what happened last spring, we need to pick a new design. 2 of these are based on community and student feedback, and they're original to this process. And as we were going through this process, we were talking about our hopes and our fears and things like that. And we were all hopeful that this process would prove to be a healing process. So whichever you choose, I hope it's 2 of the new designs. And of course, they can be tweaked. And obviously, a lot of pride went into both of the newer designs. And to be individual, as far as the Ohio State, we had a lot of critiquing of all the processed ones that we went forward with. And I just hope you pick a new design.
Julie, can I ask just for clarification and sharing with the committee, when you say 2 are newer, can you just point out for the
Option 1.
Yeah.
And option, I believe, is 3.
Yeah.
The other one's been utilized, so we really had nothing to do with that. That wasn't part of the process that came about with the change, and I think that's important. And it was something that we all talked about in our very first meeting was new.
And in the policy, hi, I'm Elena Corradino, on the committee, and in the policy it said we were going to design a new design, and the other one is not a new design. It was here before we even started.
I'm going to add something to that too. Amy Wall, also a member of the committee, to obviously piggyback off of what the 2 ladies are saying, that logo, and I brought this up at a meeting prior, that logo is not, it's not developed by the committee that we all sit on. And also, I don't know what kind of message that's sending to our kids that we can just plagiarize whatever we want. We like the Ohio State logo, so let's use it. As a designer by nature, by trade, you take inspiration from things, you don't copy things, and that's a direct copy. You can say what you want. I think that one should be taken off the table completely. That's just my 2 cents.
And sort of tying into what I had said before, when we were looking for attributes certainly option 1 and option 3 could connect with some of the attributes that we came up with.
And I'd like to point out also in the policy that it mentions that it should identify a symbol, and it says person, animal, or object. A W is not an object, it's a letter.
Can I ask a question about option 1?
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
So are those meant, is that meant to, the circles around the peripheral of that, is that meant to be some sort of a badge, or I'm just curious what it represents?
I believe it's a shield.
If I remember correctly, I thought that the student that designed it said that they were to represent the 4, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, the 4 elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school, I think.
But I think he wanted to identify it as a shield.
Oh, the whole thing, yeah, okay. I thought he was just asking about the dots themselves.
And when I look at our notes, when we were considering a new logo, the committee came up with words: strong, fierce, brave, honor, pride, tradition, brave, leadership, inclusivity, integrity, diversity, determination, and grit. And I personally, I mean, everybody views images differently. I personally see more of what we brainstormed, and it's a whole page of what we brainstormed in options 1 and 3.
And I believe when we tabled our last meeting, there was going to be a discussion, and I don't know, maybe that's still part of the process, that whatever the designs that were, 3 designs that were brought forward, they may be tweaked or somewhat talked about if they wanted to make changes to them, but keep the initial format.
How many designs did you look at to begin with, and then you settled on 2 new ones, obviously?
Was there like 12 or so?
Mike, we looked at upwards at one point of different iterations of these. I think at one of the meetings, I was looking through my notes today, there were more than 20. And again, they were iterations, so they might have been,
Variations off those, yeah.
Yeah, kind of plays on them. So there were quite a few. And between the meetings, we encouraged people to bring more ideas, and the committee was great about sharing them prior to the meetings so that people, if they could, had a chance to look at them, they did, or be able to give input on those. So there was quite a bit of sharing from the committee members around different iterations of these images.
One more question, although I won't guarantee it'll be the last one. How did the interaction of the committee work? You obviously had kids, you had community members, you had faculty. How did the conversation dynamic play out?
You asking us, Mike?
Anybody.
Anybody who wants to
Okay.
answer, it was.
Yeah. I thought that it was great. I think obviously it would have been better in person. We had breakout groups, which was nice because we switched, and it was community members along with students. So that was nice to hear current students' input and get their feedback on things, and then they could listen to us. And I think we're all lifelong residents, so we were able to share that feedback with them.
I thought the breakout rooms were really respectful, and I loved seeing all the creativity and the ideas that were shared with students, and some of the work on the option 1 and option 3 actually happened during our meetings.
That's great. That's good news. I always like the phrase, it's about the journey, not the destination. So it's good that you were respectful to each other. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
And part of the journey was when we had a forum early on, and when we were looking at the feedback from the forum, the hopes from that were to include our past and have it be inclusive of our past, but yet a bridge to our future. We were hoping to create a new logo that would resonate with the entire community, and we were to make sure that the new logo was synonymous with Wakefield's values. And again, I think 2 of those are not just a letter and a word. There's symbolism, and you can interpret that symbolism any way you like, but it's all powerful and positive symbolism.
We have some students in our group here. I'd like to invite you guys as well to speak. One of the things that all throughout this process, even in our most difficult of times within the community, was the fact that this sort of originated with some ideas that students brought forward. And I think anything that we wanted to make sure happened was that student voice was a very, very strong part of this work. I think that's why the policy subcommittee recommended and the full school committee voted to make sure that the majority of the logo design committee were students, and that student voice was strongly welcomed and encouraged and present. So we want to thank you for not only being on the committee but representing the group tonight. And that goes the same for alumni and community members. We wanted very much to make sure that this committee work was powerful, was engaging, and I think we're hearing some decent things around it being exactly that type of work. But we'd love to hear from you three ladies tonight.
Yeah, I can start. My name is Lauren Boyce. I just graduated recently.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
St. Anselm College too, right?
Yes.
Just saying, I'm just saying.
You're a little biased, but I'm not going to speak to any of the three logos specifically, but I really want to talk about the process. It was an awesome experience. I mean, just from the start of it, for it to be open to any student, I feel like it was extremely accessible, especially the fact that it was on Zoom, because it's something that we're all really used to and could really accommodate a lot of our schedules. The fact that it was made up of faculty, students, and community members was also really inclusive, and it was a really, really great experience to be able to work with everybody. It felt like a really supportive environment. And then I'd also like to speak about the way the meetings were facilitated and set up. Everybody had a chance to speak, which was really nice. And I feel like I don't want to speak for everybody, but at least for myself, I feel like I said what I wanted to say, and I felt like I was listened to and heard. So it was a really great experience. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that.
I want to second that. I feel like what Lauren was saying about everyone was able to share like their thoughts and I was able to say everything I wanted to say. And one of the things I brought up in the meeting, I want to talk about the second logo. I do like that logo. And one of the reasons is that with sports activities in Wakefield, people were able to be creative with it. And like, for example, they were able to put like hockey sticks behind it, or field hockey sticks. So people were really were able to make it their own, but also it was like everyone's almost. So I really like that idea, and I feel like that really worked well this year. We were able to, because we did use it when we retired it a bit. So I was happy to see that. Yeah, that's all I had to say. Sorry.
No pressure. Don't. You're welcome. Please, we'd love to hear from you, but don't.
I agree. I think it was a really great experience to be able to work with people and collaborate on different ideas for the logo. And I agree with Yana. I think that the second logo is good because it unifies all the different teams and activities in Wakefield, but it can also be unique and anyone can make it their own. So I really like that.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to answer any questions as well, like from a student perspective.
Did you guys do a kind of a straw poll on what everybody wanted? Did you guys vote what your favorite one was?
Mike, do you mean the committee? Did the logo committee vote? Is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe, if somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the way it was is that we picked our top three, I think. Ms. McLeod, I don't know if you want to jump in. It was so long ago.
I'm actually looking at my notes. I think we did our top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And we did it by a Google document. So we had a Google document. You were able to see all and that was that last document. There were tons of them. And I think folks were asked to identify their top 3 or 4. So Mike, there was just a final tally on it. And then we took the ones that had the most, so people could vote for as many multiple ones.
But you didn't pick 1, 2, and 3.
Amy, for clarification, it was option 1, 2, and 3 are in the order that the committee voted, correct?
I was just going to say that to Mike, yes. So the order of the most number of votes that the options got were 1, 2, and 3 as they're presented on the screen there. And I believe there were, I can break it down further than that. The final recommendations, there were 12 committee members who gave input that night. 11 voted for the first one. I'm looking at my notes, sorry. 9 voted for the second one and 4 voted for the third.
Okay. Stephen, you had your.
It was kind of Mike's question. It was the straw poll, but I'm curious if in the student body, was anyone sort of privy to this work? Like in your friend groups, in your circles, did anyone sort of see? And do you have any sort of like, for lack of a better term, like a grassroots idea of sort of what the student body might be thinking?
Yeah, so I know I asked some of my friends out of these 3 specifically, because these were all my top 3. And I think most of my friends really like the second one, which is already in use, because I think honestly solely for that reason it is already in use. We feel like it's clean and plain and simple. But that was just my experience. If you want to add on.
So I had to get a lot of merch with playing sports, and my friends really liked how it looked. They thought it looked nice as well. So I didn't ask them personally, but then they throughout the year they were making comments or like, oh, did you get this? I'm like, hey, those sweatpants look good and all that. So it looks good, and so I like it, and they like it too.
Yeah, I talked to some of my friends. They all really like the second one. I know a lot of my friends that participate in sports have shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants, even like backpacks and hats with that logo, and it seems to be very well liked by the student body in general.
Kevin.
Yeah, that was going to be a comment and a question. First of all, thank you to everyone who was a part of this process, and thank you, Amy and Will, for leading this. As part of the policy subcommittee, Mr. Ingalls really took the lead on crafting this, but it's actually nice to see something that you craft and hear the positive outcomes in terms of your experience on it. So that feels really good. So thank you. I appreciated kind of hearing some of those things. That was going to be one of my questions, and I'm not sure if this would be directed to the athletic director. Because option number 2 has been in use, has it been created in any current uniforms? Like, is it being utilized right now, for someone who purchased a set of uniforms this year? And I'm not sure. Sorry, Brendan.
No problem. So I can speak to a bunch of our booster clubs have started using it, and I know a bunch of the youth sports teams in town have started using it as well for their uniforms. For our uniforms, we haven't made it a part of our uniforms per se just yet. Obviously, kind of waiting for this process to play out, but a lot of our teams have bought additional gear. Like a lot of the booster clubs will buy sweatshirts and T-shirts for the kids. Like I know 3 of our students here have gear with that on. I know the girls hockey, Yana has some gear. I know the track team has some gear as well. Actually, the students might be able to speak to that as well.
So starting field hockey season, we got new uniforms with the old logo last year. So I knew that we weren't going to get any new uniforms anytime soon. So I did end up printing out the second logo as a sticker, and I used that to cover up. And I also got positive feedback from some of my teammates saying hey, do you have some extra stickers? And people did. I think there was about 3 or 4 of them who did wear them. So we kind of used it on our uniforms, and also in the hockey season each year we get stickers for our helmets, and we got the second logo to put on our helmet this year.
The only other one more question then. The one thing I am wondering, because the feedback about that this, if it was largely taken from the Ohio State, I just know being at larger schools, they're very protective of their trademarks, and I think they even trademarked the recently, so the Ohio State. So I do wonder if we should get some guidance just to make sure that this isn't infringing upon any kind of trademarked, font or, anything along those lines if we do decide to go with number 2, because I would hate to go down that road and then find out later on that it's inappropriate to use. I mean, there's lots of, the W for the Nationals is very similar to W, so I think we're probably would be okay, but I just would maybe wonder if we should just make sure.
So I had a question for the kids.
hold on.
So if it
Mike,
couldn't,
Mike, can you
couldn't
hold
be
on one
two.
second?
Sorry. So if it couldn't be two, what would be your next choice?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
Sure. So you got, I think all three of you like two, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
If it couldn't be two,
Yeah.
you have two other options, which would you pick?
Put him on the spot.
I think I would probably pick the first one, mostly for the reason that it was designed by a current student who was in this process. I absolutely loved collaborating with the community members, and if we had to do this process over again, I think that that's a component that we should definitely keep. But I feel like with having a current student designing it, I guess the design itself is more in the taste of current students and what we would like and what we would wear. And of course, I don't want to speak for the whole student body, but I feel like having the student representatives on the school on the logo committee, we were kind of able to depict that with the logos that were drawn. So I think I would do that just because it was drawn by a current student.
I definitely have to second that. It took me a while because I didn't really think of that question beforehand, but I liked how it has the gazebo, which is also ties into the town logo, so kind of ties everything together a bit, and the fact that it is drawn by a student, which I feel like a lot of students have to wear it in their everyday in sports and all that, so I feel like it's really important that the students do get a huge voice in this since they are wearing this logo. They will be wearing this logo frequently.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. I didn't mean to put all of you on the spot, sorry if I did. Amy, I think you were gonna say something, I might have been, sorry.
So part of for the second logo, the reason that the groups have been using it is because they've been told to use it. That's not what teams have chosen to use. That's what they've been told that they have to use. So that's why you're seeing it everywhere. Also, what else was I going to say about that one? I don't know if you want, I think a good suggestion would be, I know we're hearing from the girls here about what their second choice would be. I kind of would like to throw that out even further, have maybe do a survey with all of the students, including 8th graders who are rising freshmen, who are going to be wearing that logo for the next 4 years as well. So I think that might be another option that we put, whatever the favorites are, that we can put those out there and maybe have the students have a say as a whole. Just my 2 cents.
Okay, Amy, I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Go right ahead.
Obviously, 1 or 3 are probably your choice. If you had to pick one of them, which would it be?
Number 3 would be my favorite. I think 1 is great, and I love that a student designed it, and I love that it has the bandstand, and I think, the dots and the star. I think it's a great representation. I think it would be a great, seal for the town, or even for the school, the district as a whole. I think when it comes to the arts and to school, to sports, and to different organizations within the school, I think having that, the logo of number 3, I think just represents all of the words that we as a group kind of came up with, and kind of enhances all of that together. So my choice would be number 3, with some modifications, but that's my leaning.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, do you have any more things to say right now?
Yeah, I think I'm done.
Mike
Thank
always
you.
has
Thank you
something
for
to say.
inviting us to your school committee meeting.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Markham, can I interject?
Please.
There's just one more committee member in the room that I wanted to recognize. I have a hard end at 9 p.m., so I'm going to head out. But Mr. Workman was on the committee with us, and he was absolutely wonderful to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted the committee to make sure he was at least recognized for his work.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Will. That we certainly would have done that. I know David's not much for the spotlight, but we would certainly have done that. Thank you, Will.
He earned that spotlight throughout the committee work.
Here.
Mr. Markham, if I could just add too that Mr. Workman also worked with the student to help adapt the first option even more. So Mr. Workman came into school and met with the student one-on-one to help him turn it from a sketch to a more full option. So we really appreciate Mr. Workman's help, the one-on-one help that he offered the student. So thank you, Mr. Workman.
Thank you.
Will, before you go, I'd like to say thank you for your help with this. I think you did a great job facilitating the group. and your time is much appreciated.
Anybody?
Did you hear that?
Bueller? Anybody there?
Could you,
Anybody there?
I think they're frozen.
We're frozen.
Oh, we're frozen.
can you hear me now, Will?
Oh, now you're back. Okay, now we can hear you. Yeah.
We'll try again. Will, before you go at 9 o'clock, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your help with this. I think you did a great job facilitating, and your time is much appreciated.
Pleasure to serve.
Yep.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
Here, Will, thank you.
Thanks, Will.
Kevin?
How long has the second logo there been used by the athletic department? Has that been around for like 5 years, 6 years, 10 years? Like a while?
No,
10
for the
months?
past year, basically.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty,
It's been since, I
Yeah,
think it was
new.
2019. if I'm
oh, okay.
correct. Could be 2020, but I think it was.
So if I can clarify, there was another W that was being used prior to this one. So this one, what Brendan just said is accurate. It's rather new to this year. When the vote was made to eliminate the other, the Warrior logo with the other image, this one came into play. So this one is more recent.
Yeah, I will say there's definitely a lot of other logos similar to this throughout the school. Like I know the music department uses a W with one of the music symbols.
treble
Yes,
clef.
yeah, going through it long before this arrived. So.
But Amy, to your point, I think a different version of this.
It's the basic
Right.
idea, right? The
Right,
basic
right,
idea of this
right.
has been
A different
used
version of this was used.
prior to all of
Correct,
this happening.
correct. And the origins of that came from, I believe,
Student.
did a student do that?
Yeah,
And so-
the origins of the last W that had script over it that had been used in a few places in the school originated from a graduate of the class of 2019.
That said Warriors over it. Correct.
It said Warriors over it. It was a red W, similar to that W, but it had a script white Warriors over it. We sold some items in the store with that. I mean, a few different people picked that up. A student had created it and was using it on different things, and the student had an affiliation with the school store, so.
So I think one of the things that we've learned in this process is that different groups are using different Ws. I mean, there's some irony here, right? Because you'll see in our slides, in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a W that's there. It's also on our letterhead, which is different, you know. And the music department has, if you go to Tom Bankert's office and sit and visit with Tom, you'll see probably 6 different, you know, iterations of the W with the treble clef or different logos. So if their cup is half full, I feel positive about us moving in a direction and people dedicating time to say this is going to be our kind of crest or our logo. So I think that's a potential positive.
Yes, Amy.
So then I have a question. If people are using different things, logos now to fit the need of whether it be a sport or music, when the school committee or whoever votes on a final, is that just going to be the sports one for uniforms, or are you going to say this is what everyone has to use?
I think we would ask people to use the logo for the school, right? And I think, you know, if groups modified it with a treble clef to denote music, you know, I mean, I might give that back to the committee. I mean, I don't think it's a violation necessarily. So, I mean, Yana spoke about, you know, the W with the hockey sticks behind it. Well, it's funny, while you were talking, Yana, I was thinking if you had either 1 or 3 with hockey sticks behind it, would it kind of get us to the same place or the same concept in that teams could make it their own, right? And so, you know, I think that there's that potential to do those small things to make it team specific. But that's something that we can discuss here. You know, if the committee feels like we want to choose one and only use one, I think the committee has a right to make that decision. I think it might box some people in, and, you know, some people might want to make it their own. Like, for example, Yana talking about, you know, making it her own for her sport, right? Or modifying it in a way. And so, you know, Amy was talking about with iterations, right? Or I don't want to quote you, Amy, but.
Well, I was just going to add to that too.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can hear me without the mic. I'll just come over. So with the front-facing logo that we had prior, And I work, for people that don't know, I work for the company that produces most of the items that you see with any type of logo on it. So we would have the front-facing logo, and we would have, like Yana said, the hockey sticks behind it, the field hockey sticks. We would have a basketball sometimes in it. You would have things like that. So if you had, I'm just going to use the one that I like the best. So with the star on it, you could take the star out, put a basketball. So you could have the same logo and then just put the different sport behind it. Or it could say, Wakefield basketball. It could say, you could do the different words, but have the logo, because that's how, we've done it, where we've had the logo with the front-facing Indian on it, and then you change the thing around, but the main piece of the logo was the logo. So, and all that stuff can be done. It's been done with, with the W that's being used now, we do it with that. We've done it with the forward-facing Indian, the side-facing Indian, all that stuff can be done with the right people behind the computer, so.
I think one of the things, just to hop on the questions, and yeah, Elaine, you can speak next, but just one of the things I think that probably is occurring in the last, 12, 15 months or so, is in the absence of a confirmed logo, knowing that the school committee at the time had voted to eliminate the use of the Native American imagery. In the absence thereof, I think some creative people just filled in the blanks, knowing that, or hopefully knowing, that it was going to be an interim logo. That no matter what was designed or what was used on sweatpants or hats or jackets, or that it was going to be until this time came. So I think we want to, thank everyone for their creative energies in making sure that in between decisions, that the kids still have, some cool stuff to wear. And it's something that people enjoy and people like. But knowing that it was an interim product until this day, I think that's probably a fair thing to say, and if not, it's probably a representation of reality. Elaine, did you wanted to say something as well?
I just wanted to say that with the first or the third logo, it has the symbolism there. There's a symbol. You can still add any type of sport, as Amy said, or treble clef or whatever for the band, and still incorporate any type of attribute for the Wakefield High School. The thing that I think was important that we had decided is if you chose to go with those two, they don't specifically have to be that design. If you want to have a student tweak it, or a graphic designer tweak it, but I still feel strongly about a new logo, as we said we were going to create something new.
Great. Did I cut? I did. Kevin,
Just real
sorry
quick-
about that.
Just real quick, Ms. Wall suggested, potentially a survey of students, including potentially the 8th graders, 8th and 7th graders. So I'm wondering, the policy outlaid a number of things that the committee could have done. Did you consider, Amy, at all doing a survey? And then at this point of the year, would it be possible to do one, if that would be the route that we wanted to take?
So we did not consider doing a survey. We could do a survey, even at this time of the year, sure.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just add to that for the sake of clarity, not I'm going to say this as the chair, not as Tom, if that's such a thing, is that a survey was not part of the policy. Just to be completely honest and objective with everyone, right? The policy subcommittee didn't articulate a survey. You articulated the process that I think we followed. I think you guys followed in bringing forward up to 3 recommendations with the superintendent's recommendation and so forth. I'm not a guy that has a problem with the survey. I'm just thinking that we shouldn't a discount.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't want to disagree, just
No, okay,
outright, but with
please.
all due respect.
Yeah.
It does, in number 3, it empowers the committee to do whatever they want to do, really. And it
This
it
committee.
says, no. The committee that was created, so number 3, it says, the review may include but is not limited to any combination of the following strategies: student forums, community forums, surveys, or questionnaires. So, they could have opted to do that if they wanted
Okay.
to. That's the only reason I had asked if it had been discussed, because it had been suggested
enough.
here. So,
Fair enough.
and that's not a critique of the committee. They did, my original statement stands. They did a phenomenal job.
I guess what I was speaking to in my head anyways was what the school committee has at its discretion. If you want to read on what is the school committee's role in this process, if you want to continue reading. Kevin? What are we to do, according to the policy? No, you get it right there.
You're literally asking me. So what it says is that they get sent to the superintendent for review, and the superintendent, in consultation with the committee, meaning that committee, will make a recommendation to the school committee for final approval.
Okay, others who had, yes, Amy?
Oh, you're allowed to give our opinion?
No, this is exactly the forum to do all these opinions and thoughts and sharing and.
So I get that number 2, it's clean, it's bright, it's bold, and you can do a lot with it. But it's not original, it doesn't have a heart or any Wakefield history. So I'm wondering if we use number 1's creative, we'd have to add more dots because we have Post Academy and Doyle. We don't want to leave anyone out. But I'm wondering if we took number 3, because I think it's important that Warriors is somewhere. And if maybe we took out and I think the star is important, but I didn't know it was a W behind those wings. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. So I didn't know if we took the eagle wings out, we would get to the same place, because you have the big bold W and you have the Warriors and you have a star. So there's some symbolism there. That was just my thought. And it would be clean and bold still.
And that kind of goes with like the tweaking of everything.
Right.
You know.
I didn't know it was a W until I was like, oh, that's a W back there. Because you can't, I don't know why. Just the W and the 2, because it looks like a letter that people get when you are on a varsity sport. That's what that looks like, that W. So the font was different. I didn't know it was a W back there. But thank you for all your work. I can see where the idea came from.
Kevin?
So if you pull me off the street and I don't know anything about Wakefield, I'm probably picking number 2. But I'm only picking number 2 because I like college football and I've seen the Ohio State symbol. And I just Googled the Ohio State symbol, and yeah, it's pretty close, right? So I think that's just subconscious, like, boom, I'm just gonna pick it, right? And I get why it looks cool. So I guess I would recommend, if we do a survey, maybe like when you have the 3 options, you say, you know, option 1 was made by a student, da 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 da. Option 2 has been on this, you know, has been used, blah 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 blah. Option 3 was made, blah blah blah. Instead of just putting the 3 blindly. I don't know. That's because I get that option 1 was made by by a student.
I think a blind survey is always best. Personally, I just think because you're like, oh, so and so did that one. We like that person, so let's vote for that one.
I agree.
You know?
If I went blind though, I'm going to.
Yeah, but we have to remember too that it's not just sports.
Yeah.
It's all inclusive of everything. You know.
Can I just?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, I don't
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Stephen.
No, I want to hear it.
No, I guess I just feel like I need to speak up just in terms of just being out and about in the schools, being out in the community, watching everything unfold. And, you know, I know that there was disagreement around the old logo versus the new, but I think there is value in the fact that the kids like number 2. It has picked up steam. It looks good on their uniforms. It looks good in their, you know, how they're presenting themselves to other communities. I get what everyone's saying, but I don't want to disregard the fact that I think the kids like number 2. And I don't think it's been forced down anyone's throat, from my understanding. I think it's been put out there as an alternative as we're figuring out where we're going to go next as a community. But I'm in the schools every day. I'm on the fields. I'm seeing, and I think the kids like it. So I just think there's value with that.
Just, can I play devil's advocate to that?
You can, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I know we're probably on different sides, but
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to put that point out there.
Right, no, and the thing is.
Excuse me,
Oh, yeah.
why don't you guys come over close to the mic,
Okay.
so you don't have to keep.
So nobody else is-
No, I mean, I want to make sure everyone is in the mix here.
Okay.
Anyone that wants to consider to be heard, and David, if you have something to say, we'd love to hear from you.
So
Just saying, you're more than welcome. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're more than welcome, that's all.
To play devil's advocate to what Kara said, so the students are wearing that and liking that because that's all they've seen right now. That's what all the sports teams have been told that they have to wear, so that's what, that's what's been created because when teams are coming in, they're not allowed to put the old logo on it anymore. So that's all that they know. They haven't seen the other logos. So they might say, oh yeah, we like this one, this is great. But they haven't, in fairness, they haven't seen the other two.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I think Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was kind of a situation like you can't wear the old logo, therefore uniforms need to not have that on it. This was probably floated, this has just picked up the most steam, I guess I would say, in terms of like, if you're not gonna do that, here's an option. If you want, go, but I don't know if there's been, Brendan, you could speak to that, major pushback on like, we absolutely hate this and can't get behind it, I think.
Yeah, it's very similar to how Tom basically explained it earlier, was we needed something in the interim. So, and as Amy mentioned, there's other versions of this floating around the school as well. This just happens to be kind of the most popular.
So I help out with Wakefield Youth Hockey, and in the interim, we were trying to find a logo, and we found this exact one, number 2, because we thought, or we were told it was Wakefield, the boys hockey logo, the high school.
No, so actually,
we got it from the high school. I know that. We just didn't know where.
Yeah, actually, I can speak to that. Some people actually reached out to me whenever you designed, and they said, "Look, we've noticed you using this, and it's pretty cool. Can we use this? And can you send us a copy of it?"
Yeah.
So that's how it happened.
That's exactly how. Yeah. But we knew that it was being used previous to the logo being removed last year, correct?
Basically the same time frame.
Okay. Because someone said something about 2019.
It was before.
It was 2019 that it has been used.
That a version, it might not
A
be
version
that
of that.
exact logo, but a version of that logo has been used prior to this whole discussion.
Okay. Yep. And we have ours with the little hockey sticks and stuff too.
Done? Well, Stephen, I'm sorry, Stephen, and
That's
then
all right.
Mike, did you have something?
I just, to go back to what Amy Wall had said and what Kevin had said and hearing others, I don't want to, I'd like to see sort of what more of the student body sort of has to say about it. I know I want to respect what the community thinks. I want to respect the history of the district and the town. But at the end of the day, this is their logo. This is what represents them. And I'm seeing 3 students in front of us saying, we like X. And I don't know, Amy, you said it sounds like you exhausted a lot of resources to put this committee together. And so I think you might have an idea of the pulse of sort of what what the response rate would be on something like putting that out to your student body. Do you feel like we would get, would people be indifferent, or would people be attracted to one of those? That it would be sort of a clearer indication.
I don't know.
Okay.
I do agree with what Kara said, is that there seems to be a gravitation toward using not just that W, but we see more of the W, the plain W, or the W with the Warriors being used all around the building, not just for athletics. I don't think it's because it's the only, I agree with what Tom said, it's because it's been in the absence of, but I also think kids like it. I mean, you heard Yana talk about seeing kids with it on their sweatpants, and they've liked it. I do think that kids will respond to the survey. I'm not gonna guess what they're gonna say, because I don't know. But I do think they'll respond. Our kids are very responsive to surveys. They tend to give us their very honest opinions. Sometimes even when not asked. And so I think, and that's a good thing,
That
right?
never happens in Wakefield. I don't know where that came
Are the
from.
students laughing at the table? Yeah, of course they are. But it's a good thing. Like we want to hear from them. And so I think we could put together a survey if that's what the committee is asking for. And I think students will respond.
I think the survey is a good thing to do, but I think what's almost as important, if not more, is finding out if we have some sort of trademark infringement case here, because we certainly don't want to get all of our equipment with this logo and then have Ohio State come and sue us. So we should at least do some due diligence there as well, I think.
I'm curious.
Okay.
I'm just to build on that sort of that poll idea. Part of me would like to see it, but I'm recognizing that we have 10 days left in the school year, and I'm thinking about we have a senior class that just left. And we have incoming 8th graders that this is going to represent them, and they might want to have a voice in it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to push this out by any means. This has been one of the most sort of strung along processes. It's important. It's important for the youth to sort of decide, what is it going to be that's going to represent us as a student body and take ownership of it. But I'm trying to, yeah. One part of me wants to do a poll. The other one says it's too short. We should hold off a little bit until we get the new class.
Does the poll have to end by the end of the school year, though?
So hold on. Let's. So Dr. Lyons, I've had your hand up very patiently for a few iterations now.
Yeah.
Using the word iteration, I'm going to take liberty to allow that.
At first, I want to thank everybody for being part of this process. I also think that the administration did as the policy required, right? And I think that, there's a lot of important points that were brought up. The point about, logo infringement or copyright is an important point that I think needs to be looked into, right? And I think we probably should look into that for all of our images, right? Just to say, is this an infringement on any kind of copyright? And so I think we could do that, right? I don't know how quick we could turn that around, but if we could turn it around, I do think this is going to be something that students wear, right? And the difficult part of this work is when you have three choices, someone's going to be disappointed, right? If you choose one as opposed to another, some group, some members are going to be disappointed. And so it's really just trying to understand, and there's a lot that has been said, and I've tried to listen to all the perspectives while respecting the process. And so one of the things that I agree with is Stephen's comment about we've taken this much time, don't rush to finish just to get to done. I think that's number one. Number two, I think the questions that came up in this conversation around copyright, I think is important, and I think it's something that we should look at. And the third part that I would agree with, and I don't know how quick we could get back feedback on kind of logo or kind of copyright infringement type information. But my sense is that if we could get that back in a reasonable amount of time, let's say in a week, and we had a week of school left, we probably could get a survey out to kids, a Google survey, and just say, these are our choices, 1, 2, or 3, right? And to include the 8th grade, they're coming in. Amy has said this from the beginning, and this would give them an opportunity. This is something that you're going to be taking on. I want to be also sensitive to all of the work that Amy McLeod has done, because she's done a lot, right? She's done a lot, and it's been a lot to manage, right? And this is on a list of other things that have kind of taken quite a bit of time between NEASC and MSBA. The high school administrative team has really been amazing this year in regard to all that has been accomplished. So I want to be mindful and respectful of what they've done. But I do think my recommendation might be to kind of push these out to council to see if there are any infringement or copyright issues, all 3 of them, right? There you go, get feedback, and then if we have enough time, a week, if we have a week left, then we can put it out in a survey. And if we don't, I might suggest that we wait till the fall, right?
Doug,
yes,
if I
sir.
can jump in real fast, I saw. So are we planning on purchasing any athletic gear for the fall season? Are things tattered that we have to get new soccer uniforms or something?
So,
Brendan? Or could
the
we
question
wait?
to the answer that you're asking is yes, right? Yes. And so Brendan's here shaking his head, yes, right? So, go ahead, Brendan.
So Mike, I can tell you anything that we've purchased recently during this time period, we've basically not put a logo on it. Just as you can see, the shirt that I'm wearing right now, it's just Wakefield Warriors. And if there's a logo, it's just a W. That's purchases from the athletic department.
And we're also, let's just be clear here as well, because this question always comes up. How can we afford to make this change? This would be made incrementally over time, right? This question always comes up, and I feel like we have to make this point to anyone that might be watching. This isn't a wholesale change, but I do think, for the reasons that I've shared, I would like to try to slow it down to get it right, as opposed to getting to done. My 2 cents.
So Elena and then Lauren.
I strongly agree with Stephen that a student should be the deciding factor. However, I believe that the student should have to choose from one of the new designs. If I agree with you, Tom, as far as the school policy, as we know, the school committee spent a lot of time making that policy. It is supposed to be a new design. The number 2 should have never been brought forward, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. So my understanding was any new design that was going to be brought forward, the students would tweak it, would take what they liked out of it, and maybe redesign it before it went to the graphic designer, or have the graphic designer give the students an idea. But yes, of course, the students had great input. They were very positive, and I think it's ultimately, their decision, but I think that number 2 has to be taken off the table. We spent a lot of time on the committee. I'm pleased that you asked me to be on the committee, but, everybody's time is valuable, and that's why I believe that it shouldn't have been brought forward.
So I just wanted to add that if the second number 2 is brought forward, something that the committee spent a lot of time on was coming up with the attributes. And from, hearing what the 3 of us have said, so if number 2 is brought forward, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but my gut feeling is that is what the students would want. And I feel like taking the attributes that the community came up with, maybe that's something that we start to build in with school culture, maybe like another school policy, and building that in and not necessarily focusing on putting it directly in the logo. I think that those attributes might be something that would fit better long term that this logo could represent, but doesn't necessarily have to include, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Okay.
So one of the, okay,
sorry,
Amy, do you want to
Okay.
say
You know I like to talk,
please?
Tom.
I missed that.
Yeah, I'm sure. So the only thing that I worry about with the weighting, I'm not going to backpedal. All right, we're going to start with right now. If we're to wait, my fear, and I don't agree with rushing it at all. I think that this should be played out. But my only fear with waiting is that more teams are going to be coming forward. The fall teams are going to be starting to come and get, we need football shirts, we need this, we need this, we need this. And that's what they're going to end up using. And then it's going to come to a point that it says, oh, well, we've already been using this one, so let's just continue using it, instead of having it be an actual, grassroots. These are the 2 things that were designed by, people not taken from a website, and let's move forward with something like that. So that's my fear, is that if we wait too long, because all these orders are already coming in for teams that are happening in the fall, and they're using that because that's what they have to use. So that's why you're seeing it. But as a sales perspective, I can tell you straight out that the sales of that logo are so far below the sales of other logos that we have in the store. So you're seeing it more because all the sports teams are getting their, Wakefield football, Wakefield cheer, Wakefield whatever. So they're using those now, and I just fear that we're going to see those more and more, and we're just going to have to go with that because that's all there is. So that's just my 2 cents.
Amy, can I ask what you're seeing is like the booster clubs and
It's everything. So it's the booster clubs, it's all the sports teams, it's parents ordering for parent volunteers, it's the kids ordering, it's everybody. So I forget, how many teams do we have, Brendan? Is it 27?
30.
Oh, 30, okay. So it's, pretty much, there might be 2 or 3, maybe up to 5 that don't utilize us. Everybody else does, in some fashion.
Okay, anyone else have thoughts to
Great
share?
job, all of you. I'm really encouraged that the process was respectful and everybody listened to each other's opinion. That's
really was.
regardless of what the solution is. So kudos to all of you for being willing to listen.
I think maybe we're going in the same direction. I wonder if, kind of based upon the advice of Dr. Lyons, like maybe should we make a motion, maybe send it back to the committee to actually maybe conduct a survey, meanwhile, we can kind of do, I'm sorry to throw that in there, I just worked at Notre Dame, so we were very protective of our stuff, so I just want to make sure, it's probably nothing, we're not experts, but we're going back and forth, like, we think it's okay. But, maybe if students can be, like you said, through, the Galvin, or the 8th grade, 9, 10, 11 can do a survey with these 3 options. Meanwhile, we can do some of our due diligence and maybe make a motion to that effect, if that makes sense, or other suggestions that others may have.
Well, I was going to attempt to summarize consensus thoughts that, one, I think, first of all, to start with, again, as already been stated, but it couldn't be stated enough, thank you to the committee, the 18 of you, or whatever number it was, for meeting on probably some pretty cold days and nights and times and places, and to put together something that, in the grand scheme of things, may not be that important, but really it is. We're creating a symbol for our community, creating a symbol for our school, and for what we want to represent, and what we want to hear that you want to represent. So it may not be the most expensive piece of work that this committee does, but it's certainly incredibly valuable, and your time has been very much appreciated and respected. So I think that's a nice summary of that piece. So I'm also hearing that we don't want to rush to judgment, nor do we want to drag our feet. And if we can find somewhere in the 50-yard line to maybe get us over that sort of hump, I think that it's probably fair, with the superintendent and the principal with us, that we could probably conduct a survey in a matter of days, never mind 3 weeks. That is going to be something that gets, pushed out and shared and feedback returned. I think the comment that was brought up by several people now, but certainly the superintendent sort of, I think, summarized it well, that yeah, we want to make sure that we're not doing anything copyright infringement. I'm sure no one had that as no one intentionally was doing any of that, but I'm sure all across the board. I mean, I'm no copyright lawyer or have any expertise whatsoever, but I can imagine from whoever's signing the purchase order to even the T-stop for printing the image. You probably have some liability in that mix too. I don't know that, but I'm speculating that everyone whose finger's going to touch this have some obligation to respect another artist's work. So I think it's probably most fair to say that we take a vote off the table tonight, or take the superintendent's recommendation, which he's yet to give, but take that off the table tonight, and to ask the committee to, working with the superintendent, to reach out to our attorneys and see if they can find a copyright a specialist to help us appreciate the logos or the variations that may be bits and pieces of where we're at.
I'm sure our art department can help us straight away, right? In terms of just with the imagery, and give us feedback. And as soon as I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, that's great. That's great to hear.
Point of order, Tom. Is it possible to put a date on that so we have a?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
we'll get to that, but yes, absolutely, that was what we would want to do. So, I guess certainly either a consensus, meaning providing the superintendent with direction, versus a motion, but certainly a motion is always in order by any member at any time. But if a consensus is appropriate, with a series of nods, we'd ask the superintendent and the principal and the committee to begin in earnest some research to make sure that we're not doing any sort of copyright infringement. And if it is the consensus of the committee that a survey of students in grades 8 through 11 be added, it's our committee so this is the other thing I was going to say moments ago. It's our policy, so it's also our policy to break with regard to this. So we choose to ask this committee to take up its work and do a survey. I think that's within the prerogative of the school committee to do. I don't think that's holding anything back. And if we really feel, as I know many of us do, that student voice is an incredibly important part of this mix, while we have some outstanding representatives, if we have an opportunity to hear from another, 1,000 students, and potentially between grades 8 and 11, that we should probably take advantage of that. Is that a reasonable summary? Anyone can make a motion, but I'm just saying if that's consensus and the superintendent understands, the principal understands what we're asking. Yeah, Julie, please
Can I just
speak.
make an addition? In the survey, if a little snippet of a background could be attached to each image so that students would know that one was from a student, one was from a community member, one was just a little background about what the imagery means. It's all in our notes that we generated together. So some of that information, if it could be attached in the survey, would help the kids glean more information about the background and the origins of each design.
I would imagine that in the minutes of your meetings, you probably have some.
That's what I'm
some
saying.
nice
We do.
Snippets or a paragraph, not a
Yeah.
whole paragraph, but a sentence or
Details
two.
about what
That's
each
probably-
object
yeah,
means.
sounds-
That would help the kids understand where
Yeah.
they came from, the
And help
origins.
and help help prod the conversation along, so it's
Because
not
otherwise,
just
I
about.
know which one will win, because it's familiarity will win, and it's what they already have, and it's what they've already purchased. But I do think there's power in designs that were generated for this specific situation.
Okay, any other thoughts or to share?
Is there a way to set up the survey that it's the only one-time use? Some of the surveys I get through the school system I can take multiple times.
I believe there is.
Yes, because it would be on a Google, I'm assuming a Google Doc.
Google form.
And you can set it that way on the back end, yeah.
Can only use one email.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Okay, so is that yes, Kevin?
Are we making this motion based on the,
I need a motion.
excuse me, based on the idea that we're going to vote the next meeting?
Well, I'm not making a motion. I was trying to develop a consensus of the room, and if that seems like we're all on the same page and the superintendent, the principal understand what we're asking, I think a motion is unnecessary. But with that in mind, there certainly would be, I would think, I'll throw out an expectation that we seek to have this done by June 28th, by our next meeting, which we will put this back on the agenda, and we may or may not vote then, depending on how the deck shuffles out. But I think, Amy mentioned, I think where you were going is to put a expectation of a deadline.
I would hope we could have a vote on the 28th.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
sports teams can order their gear and
Right.
we can
Yeah,
get this
I
done.
suspect that might be aggressive if we're gonna try to get some copyright infringement advice from some attorneys. They're not gonna turn this around quickly, so we should be at least flexible to perhaps 2 more weeks out if necessary.
Yeah.
We can try. I think it might be a little tight with attorneys.
I think we can certainly begin the process of copyright research, and the survey can almost be concurrent.
Yep.
But I think we have a consensus. Dr. Lyons, you have an appreciation of where we're at?
I do.
Principal McLeod, do you have appreciation of where we're at?
I do.
Okay. So let's then resume this conversation at the school committee meeting on June 28th. And again, thank you all incredibly. Please come back, by the way, and share your thoughts electronically with the principal or Dr. Lyons, or make sure that your input continues.
So I assume we're gonna
Thank
get
you.
some type of notification that says this is when we're gonna meet again?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I'll send it to you directly.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you all.
And if anyone has any questions offline, if they want to be in touch, you're more than welcome to. Okay? Thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Workman.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it,
Mr.
much
Workman.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
I just have one sports. I got some breaking news right before I came in here. Positive stuff, I promise. We missed it in the athletics update, but I got a call from the Boston Globe right before I came in here. And the Boston Globe every year, they give out the Richard Phelps Award, which is probably the most prestigious award in the state. They choose a handful of student athletes throughout the entire state. They look at every single high school, public, private, prep, and they choose a handful of kids who not only are they consider the top athletes in the state, but academically the best students in the state. And Wakefield High's Sophie Brown got selected. So
Nice.
congratulations,
All right.
Sophie, if you're watching. and they're going to be reaching out to her. They're going to honor her Monday at Fenway Park, 11 a.m. And she, as part of the award, will receive a $3,000 scholarship for college.
Wow.
So,
That's fantastic.
That's terrific.
congratulations, Sophie.
Thank you, Brendan.
Brendan, what sport does Sophie play, just so the community can...
Sophie is a three-sport superstar: swimming, basketball, and track. And she's off to the University of California, studying biology, I believe pre-med, but have to check with her on that. So
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's great news.
So,
Thank you for sharing
awesome.
that, Brendan, that's for sure.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brendan.
Off to UC San Diego, UCal San Diego. Great place, great school. If you don't recognize the name, she was our Master of Ceremonies at graduation. She is a remarkable kid. You know, you've heard me joke, we want to post-date their teaching contracts if they want to come back between graduate school and saving the world. Like
She's also on youth council.
there's not much you can't do, right? So yeah, and so pretty amazing. So
Dr. Lyons, please continue.
no pressure on just finishing up my updates. Oh my goodness. So I'll just be very, very quick. Our COVID numbers continue to drop. Right now we're at 45 cases, 29 and 16, 29 adults, 16 students. We have one student right now in quarantine, so that's good. So our numbers are continue to trend in the downward direction. We're working to figure out kind of how to continue to support the community with the Board of Health with testing and try to make those available over the summer. More information to follow on that in our next school committee meeting. In addition, but in between the last meeting and this meeting, myself, the high school administrators, specifically Amy McLeod, and our engineering team from SMMA, the design team, and our project management team from Left Field presented at MSBA. And so we presented via Zoom. And so this is kind of a little bit of an engineering challenge in that you need to summarize the last really 3 years worth of our work into 15 slides and to give this summary in 20 minutes. And so these 15 slides that we discussed in 20 minutes was a summary of about 3,500 pages of information that we sent to MSBA. So it's like on your mark, get set, go, summarize, tell us about what you'd like to do and why. Remarkably, MSBA rarely, gives, at least from what I know of the process and from other superintendents and kind of hearing from them, they, don't talk a lot about, they listen and they'll ask clarifying questions. In this particular case, the feedback, I think, was really, I would say, glowing. I think the feedback around the educational plan, which again was created by Amy McLeod and her administrative team and teacher leaders. The education plan, I thought their talk about the education plan and how it translated into the design, I think that they were thoroughly impressed with. The use of the Library Media Center, the feedback there was really positive. That's Diana Ho that wrote that section. Diana is amazing, really wrote very thoughtfully about really the need for library media spaces to continue to be vibrant hubs and centers in schools. So the feedback that we got is very positive. We got a little feedback in art. There was some concern by one of the MSBA board members that the art spaces might be a little undersized, which we thought, is this really happening? Is MSBA talking about something being undersized? That never happens. So we took the feedback. They also they had also questions for us. So we're addressing their questions, but that work is progressing. And there's a cohort of members in the community that are also looking to start a group similar to the old Galvanized group to really educate the community around what is happening, what the new school project means, what it looks like, why we're looking at the square footage that we are. So more information to follow on that, but I think it was a very, very positive experience. And I really can't give enough credit to Amy McLeod and her team in the educational plan that was created. Really, really well done. So that's an update for me, and that's it. thank you so much.
Any
What's the
questions of the
next-
superintendent? Oh, Kevin.
Yeah, what's the next step after this presentation?
We're moving into schematic design.
Okay.
And so we will be taking the information that we summarized, Kevin, and really moving into a space where we're moving into design. And so, and with that, we're preparing for town meeting in the fall, which will really look to allocate funds to continue the design process. This is module 4 that we're entering into at this point. You just built a new high school. Yeah.
So we're design phase, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Doug,
Yes, sir.
did you want to talk about the moving on, since that was a topic that came up at Galvin? a little bit?
Happy to do it, Michael. Thank you for the prompt. We got a few questions about the moving on ceremony in the 8th grade at Galvin. Questions around, why are we doing it like we're doing it? I'd spoken to Meg Webb and Andrew Tetrock several times over the last few days, and in kind of looking at their responses to parents in regard to their questions. So just on scale, the email was not overwhelming. We got 5 email. I received 5. Meg and Andrew may have received more, and there might be more parents that have questions about this. And just for background, the end of year ceremony at Galvin has been done probably a half a dozen different ways. We've had it here at the field house. We've done it in the gym at Galvin, and in each place, especially the gym at Galvin, I think the feeling was the heat is just oppressive in there. There's no air conditioning in there. We've moved it into the auditorium where we've had limited seating. We've had it in the auditorium that's air conditioned, and we've had overflow space in the cafeteria that's also air conditioned. And people have watched it on a monitor, which was a little awkward, right? And so the reason, and just to be clear, not everyone can fit into the auditorium. There's about 270, 280 kids in the 8th grade. When we bring teachers in and we bring others in, we're at about half capacity in that space. I think that space seats about 650, right? I wish Tom Bankett were here, I'd give you an exact number. So, when you put 300 plus in there, you're at about half. There's not a lot of space for parents. There's certainly not a lot of space for extended family, brothers, sisters, grandparents. So, what happened was, or where we're at in regard to the decision making, the 8th grade or the middle school administrative team did a modified moving on ceremony last year where they did it by team. So they included awards during that time, but they broke it up into thirds. There are 3 8th grade teams. And so by breaking it up into thirds and doing it outside, it allowed an unlimited number of family members that were able to come. But in any decision that's made, you kind of bump up against something. So what they bump up against is when they move it from the evening to the morning, it's during the day, and sometimes it's difficult for parents to get there during the day. The positives, again, are it increases access, and it also has increased the middle school's opportunity to recognize and award students by team and not just by grade, which is something that we've gotten feedback on. So all of the decisions that have been made have been to solve a problem, to improve what we're doing. So where the admin team has landed, this has been made with experiences from the past to improve the outcomes, to make a better process. We're open to feedback, and we will kind of debrief as we go through this. And if in the future we feel like there's a better way to do it, I think we'll start working on that with PTO, with school council, with students, and with teacher leaders. But that's a quick. Happy to take any questions that you might have that I can answer at this point in time. Yes, sir.
Is there an option for people to watch it remotely? If we're moving it from the evening to the daytime,
yeah,
where some people might have some challenges, some family members might be working.
Yeah, I don't believe we're filming to stream or to watch remotely. I don't believe WCAT. So this again, we get into these spaces where it's trade-offs.
Yeah. Here's Ryan.
Everybody. I'll make it quick. We will be there.
Oh, good.
And we'll be streaming it, and it'll be on cable as well. And then if you miss it, it'll be up
Awesome.
afterwards.
Thank you so much. Perfect timing.
All right.
Great. Thanks for the hard work.
Thanks, Ryan.
So they
To the
so they're-
rescue.
So I'm glad you asked the question, but they're doing it 3 times.
Yeah.
So we're having music at the event, so that's 3 times, right? So I think that we're trying to meet a lot of needs of a lot of constituents, a lot of groups. So, and I think that where we are in this design, I think they feel like at this point in time meets the most needs of most groups. Not all, there are trade-offs, but that's where we are. Thank
I'm
you
sorry.
for asking the question.
You said last year it was outside because of COVID, but this year it's back inside?
No, it's outside.
Okay.
Yeah, unless there's rain and they can move inside.
Oh, is that?
And they still have space because it's one team.
But it's
At a time.
outside
One
and then
team-
the
one
rain
team at a
date's
time.
the same, just inside.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the prompt, Michael.
Are they,
Thank you.
are they they're 3 different days? Do we know the 3 different days? Or are they 3 times during the same day?
So Meg Webb will be sending out the schedule for that likely tomorrow or Thursday. So I believe parents already have it, but I think that's where we're at.
But it's one day.
It's one day.
Yeah, different times.
1 day, 3 times in 1 day, right.
So you just want to make sure if you have twins, they're in the same team.
Good, no, thank you, Doug, and thanks, Mike, for bringing that up. That was something we were going to talk about at the end of the meeting. So
Great.
thank you for prompting that, and thanks, Doug, for the
Of course.
information.
Of course.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Seeing none. Item 11, budget items. We're moving all of budget items to the June 28th school committee meeting. Subcommittee reports, finance, until our transition, with regard to subcommittees, the Finance Committee has not met since our last meeting, and I think Dr. Lyons gave a terrific update on the MSBA and the high school project status. So, labor and personnel. We have continued to meet in great success with our partners in education at Unit C for WEA. We are at a place where I'm pleased to announce that we have a tentative agreement, meaning that both the Labor Relations Subcommittee negotiators as well as the union negotiators have agreed to the terms as we've brought them forward, and as they have negotiated and brought those terms forward. So we're really, really pleased. I think it's more than fair to say that I think we have an excellent contract, an excellent proposal that meets as many needs as possible in bringing forward a great a series of respect and appreciation for the work that Unit C members do, the very difficult and challenging work, the essential work that they do. I think it fits what this school committee and its predecessor school committee set in motion last fall, with a very genuine desire and an earnest desire to make sure that we represented that we very much so wanted to advance our Unit C members with both their obligations around staffing, as well as certainly appropriate and increase in wages and compensation, which is certainly, I think, something that they've deserved. Have been underwhelming for many years now. But I also think it's in what we'll see when the terms become public. I also think that we'll see some nice gains on behalf of teaching and learning for students and for the district. I think when that becomes something that we share out, I think we'll all be very, very pleased and proud of our collective work. And at this point, I know we'll say it again, but at this point, certainly want to thank the Unit C leadership and the WEA leadership for being such a good partner in the last couple of months. What will happen next is that the Unit C membership, the paraprofessional membership, will have a meeting at some point at their time and schedule, and their negotiating team will present the terms to their membership. And it's our hope, our collective hope, that will occur in the next couple of weeks, and that we will have a full and open report to this committee as well as the community on June 28th, as well as our ability to take a vote to endorse the collective bargaining agreement on June 28th as well. So there's some really good things to report around our discussions with the Unit C leaders. Student Services, Mr. Bedreau.
Yep, so we have not met, so I think great selection on the new members, so Amy chairing with Eileen and Kevin, so certainly it'll help with the transition. I've also been the liaison for CPAC, I'll talk about that a little bit later, so we'll have to decide whether it makes more sense to have somebody on Student Services take that, or if I continue to fulfill that role. But we haven't had a meeting yet, or haven't in a while.
Okay. Policy and Communications, we have items and action items. Dr. Piscatello.
Yes, thank you very much. Like the other committee, we haven't met, but a lot of the work that we had put in throughout the year is coming up now that we'd like to talk about. The first, I'll kind of take them in order that they're listed there and provide just maybe a little bit of context, and then, Ms. Lehman, if you can make a motion, and then we can answer questions or have discussion about them. As I discussed 2 meetings ago when we originally placed this policy on sexual harassment in Title IX, it really kind of came about following changes that the Department of Education put in place at the tail end of the Trump administration. They went through a more formal process to examine Title IX, a real formal process of soliciting feedback, hearings, etc., and then publish a number of different changes that they were going to require that all institutions implement. So K-12, public schools, certainly higher education as well. And for those of us that were there, at least in the fall, when Attorney Joyce came in and met with us, he talked a little bit about this already when he was talking about Title IX. So the definition of sexual harassment, for instance, that was a little bit broader, became a little bit more specific. And if you remember, they added the "and," which was really important. So it was conduct that was so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. So you had to make sure that that was incorporated in your policy. There was new processes around formal complaints and proceedings. There was the need for a formal report to be made. There was an option that you had to present for an alternative resolution, or we call it informal resolution at my institution. So when you look through the policy that's being presented, you can see all those things evident in that policy. So this was a policy really drafted by our legal counsel, the experts, at Sarah's firm in Title IX, along with some of the suggestions from MASC to really kind of, again, modernize the policy, make it congruent with current expectations from the Department of Education that we have to follow, etc. Just for those of you on the policy subcommittee, but it may not be for a little while. There'll be additional changes. Already the Biden administration, upon taking over, have already indicated that there'll be some additional changes, which sometimes can be done informally through what they call dear colleague letters. But since all these changes that were done under the Department of Education and President Trump were done formally, it's a little harder to change over time. So experts are saying in the next couple of years, you'll see some additional changes kind of coming forward, probably some tweaks of things that are here. But the policy herein that we're looking at today was drafted with a lot of input from legal counsel. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, it's also to try to create, a safer space for our students, right? And so, you can hear Kevin's technical expertise, all that he knows about this, and he's spot on in regard to the changes that were made that are evident in the new policy. But it's a driver for the Policy and Communications Subcommittee is also to create safer spaces and better outcomes for our students, for our faculty and staff.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. So, Selena, do you want to make a motion?
Move that the school committee approve the new policy on sexual harassment, Title IX, policy number 105, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Whoop, whoop. Amy, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
I just, some parents did review this policy, and the feedback I got, and it might be covered in this, like, complaints and reports of sexual harassment, is that the victims or the students or teachers, whoever, who are reporting the harassment be supported both academically and emotionally. And so I think that's what this section is that correct? And so when it says discuss and offer supportive measures, is there something, I don't know, in the handbook or maybe in the principal's office that describes what these supportive measures are? Because I felt, well, not I felt, but the feedback we got, the incident earlier this year, the school year, is that some of the students didn't feel supported. And I don't want anyone to ever feel that way.
Yeah, I think.
I would say the paragraph above.
Okay. Okay.
Explicitly spells out what supportive measures are.
Okay.
But that being said, what Doug would say is that I think the district strives to make sure that everyone sort of has that safe space.
Yeah.
And to what this says at the bottom, even if there isn't a formal complaint, like everything would be investigated and that those individuals involved would get the services they need.
I can't say that just in terms of what, if it's more general in the policy, I think when a Title IX investigation is conducted and just part of our standard template of how we would run that investigation and what would conclude at the end, regardless of whether the behavior hit the standard of sexual harassment, we're always offering recommendations for moving forward for both for the situation in general, especially for those who reported, that would be specific to those students and their school setting and what they specifically need. So the recommendation piece at the end of the report is definitely standard.
Okay.
Yeah. I also think that there's an adaptive piece where I think it's incumbent upon us as administrators to, if something's not listed as a measure, that we also collaborate with one another to figure out what students need to feel supported and feel heard.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
That's all I had.
Any other questions or comments regarding the motion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Dr. Piscadlo, back to you.
Thank you. Our second policy is looking at policy on standards for responsible use of technology. Certainly, we have some established policies around technology, but as things change, the use of technology changes, et cetera, there was a need to kind of update. I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Ingalls, but to give you credit, because you, the superintendent, and Mr. Weiner were big parts in creating this. Did you want to speak at all about the policy based upon your experience with it?
We could just sort of, as a high level, I think what the existing policy was missing was some things that sort of technology moves along, and we find ourselves in some spaces where definitions and uses that weren't previously thought of in maybe the other iteration could be brought in. Things like the way that somebody might use a device to record something was sort of defined, and it wasn't thought of as like audio visual. Sharing messages across multiple platforms hadn't been thought of. I think this captures that more, and I think it also calls out just the idea of sort of respecting space. It goes into that harassment piece a little bit. That these tools are tools to learn. They're privileges that are afforded. They become part of our everyday, and that sort of we have a responsibility to use them properly. And then just to be good stewards of them, of the space, and if they're an extension of ourselves, which they are, that we need to know that their capabilities for causing harm, and make sure that they don't. So, and I think this policy does that, and I think it sort of, I think it calls into, it brings in a lot of those different nuances.
Great, thank you. Rosalina, do you want to make the motion?
Move that the school committee approve the new policy on standards for responsible use of technology, policy number 1106, as presented.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Ingles. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Lehman.
So thank you. I know Stephen did the lion's share of this work with Jeff Weiner and Dr. Lyons, so thank you for that. So some of the policies, this one, including, it refers to a handbook. So I just wonder if we're able to put a hyperlink, because then when people are reading their policies, then they're like, oh, now I gotta go find the handbook, which is in a totally different section of the website. Oh, you are, okay.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Doug, you can jump in if you want, just in terms of revamping our handbooks. 'Cause
The short answer is yes.
Oh, okay.
There should be, we've talked just about how our current handbooks are just really lengthy, and there's redundancy in terms of things that have been printed out. So we're talking a lot about like hyperlinks that can go right for, like within the policy, within the handbook,
Oh, okay.
right, link to the school committee policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And vice versa, and possibly vice versa.
We're also trying, right now, we created a template district-wide to have the same handbook structure at every level, because there was a whole formatting piece too with all the handbooks as they were. So it's a work in progress. We're chipping away. We're hoping to get it in front of the subcommittee, at least drafts of the handbook revisions pretty soon.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
To read on the beach.
pardon?
To read on the beach.
Hopefully sooner than the beach, Stephen. But, one of the things that I appreciate, or I like about this policy is that it doesn't only discuss responsible uses, but one of the things that we talked about is really trying to give a range of examples or scenarios, right? Both in our handbooks, and this talks about on page 3, irresponsible uses of technology.
Yeah.
It's not an exhaustive list, but it's fairly suggestive, and, if someone is looking at this, they might think, all right. Like, yeah, some things to think about here, right? And again, our handbooks, this also makes reference to the handbook, right? And so, but more to follow on that, but yes.
And we talked about, when we were talking about this policy in the subcommittee, we could have the most amazing policy, but unless they're not being shared, taught, and enforced, there's really no use of having a policy. So I didn't know what we do with this policy once it's approved. Does it happen at orientation? Do teachers get a copy? Like, how is it distributed, and how do we enforce these?
Yeah, one of the things that I think we've received feedback from the WEA in our joint meeting that we had is, when we have new policies, they would like to be informed. The notion that it's in the packet and they can access it online, I don't know if that's enough.
Yeah.
Right? I do think that they need to know, as we're going through our entire policy book and as things are updated, we need to develop a system to get it in front of teachers, right? So, for example, if these policies are accepted this evening, I think these need to be part of a greater list of policies that have been updated that we would ask teachers to reference at the start of the school year. I think it's really, really difficult to do anything like that now. I think teachers are feeling like just trying to get to the end. So I think people are in that space. But go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, having seen irresponsible uses of technology every day, I was kind of wondering if in the classroom, not at my house, but and not by myself, of course, but with my students, I was wondering if like the WEA and the teachers, like what the feedback is like with the use of cell phones in the classroom, because I know that that's obviously a problem, within classrooms around the country, in terms of, whether, it's common practice for teachers to have the famous, the containers where kids put their cell phones in when they walk in the classroom, whether middle school has different issues than high school. I just didn't know what the feedback was like with this. And I think this is great that this really articulates, specific, especially with the harassment aspects of it. It's really good to outline this. I really like the off-campus allusions to it. The administration has the right to intervene in a lot of those cases that take place outside of school, because obviously that's a massive issue. But I just didn't know what the feedback was like. But definitely, you're right, it's June. I mean, we're all shutting down,
Yeah,
but I think definitely looking forward to September. That's
I can answer the question quickly, and it's one perspective. I think what we're hearing from teachers is that it's hard to manage cell phones, right? And even during unstructured times, transitional times, and students are passing class to class, and we're also in this space where, and adults are still trying to grapple with this and get their heads around this, is that, kids communicate more with their phones than they do verbally face to face. It's hard for us to kind of acknowledge, but it's a reality, right? Kids share information. They share ideas, things they think are funny, things they think are interesting, things they think are, any number of things. But they share those things via text, via video, and via pictures, right? That's how they share those things, right? And so, and social media intersects with all of these, right? And so, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, any of these things are kind of vehicles to share information and to kind of bounce it back and forth to one another, right? And it's how our generation of students, how they communicate, right? So, in some ways, that's positive, and in regard to their ability to consume the amount of information that they are able to consume. In another way, it's terrifying because they're sharing things and doing things that we think we know about, and sometimes we don't. So I do know that teachers at the high school, at the middle school, have said, yeah, it's difficult. At the middle school, teachers will say, it's required for students to have their phones in their locker. But when they go to the bathroom, they might grab their phone, or they might take it to the bathroom, or they might, So we always try to create checks and balances, and we always try to coach well before things escalate or before students make a less than positive choice. But it doesn't always go that way, and the high school's a little different. I think in most classrooms, everyone has the caddies, but it's the same type of thing. If someone's getting up and going to the bathroom, sometimes they grab their phone, and when they're transitioning between classes. Some students are really uncomfortable not having their phone right on their person. Other times we've had students that will say, I'm taking notes on my phone. Do I understand that? I don't. Is that kind of incomprehensible to me? It is. We've had students, at graduation, you saw our student step up and read from his phone, before he took a selfie, of course, right, of him in the audience. But those are challenges that I know probably in the same space that you see, but it's really hard. And Amy's spot on. You can write the best policy in the world if it's not something that becomes part of the culture that people feel safe and secure in a way that they can coach and teach, then I think it's hard to think that something's going to change. But I think that that's something beyond the policy, beyond this policy. I think that speaks to more work that we need to do in regard to relationships with students. That's just a thumbnail sketch or a thumbnail feedback. I could talk for quite a bit of time about it, but yeah. And I'm glad to hear nothing like that is happening at your house.
My house,
yeah. Not that he's aware of it.
No, my kids are, they're 9 and 7, so. Got a few years.
Okay, any other comments or questions regarding this policy and its motion? Seeing none, we have a motion on the table, made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Dr. Viscadlo, back to you.
And then last but not least, and Superintendent Lyons referenced a meeting that the former committee had with the WEA at one point. And one of the things that they had brought up was asking us to take a look at the then policy on conflict resolution, which if you go to the current one, basically just references that there will be a process. So they asked us to take a look at that and provide a little bit more direction. We did so. The subcommittee worked on that, tabled it, put it on the table here. We got some additional feedback from the WEA, so the subcommittee went back, took some of that advice and suggestions. We drafted another draft, collaborated again with the WEA leadership, and are able to present today this policy to put on the table. So we'd like to put on the table the policy on conflict resolution for 2 weeks to be voted at the next meeting. So.
Move that the school committee remove from consideration the policy on conflict resolution that is presently on the table and place on the table for the school committee's consideration a revised policy on conflict resolution, policy numbers 703E, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. It's typically not a much discussion at this point, because we've got 2 weeks for both comment from the committee as well as comment from the public. And we will have this discussion at the meeting on June 28th. So motion made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Is there a way to add this to the packet, though, online? Because right now the new one
Yes.
is, okay.
Yep, in
Thank
fact, Judy and I have already had a very brief part of that
Oh,
conversation
great,
earlier
thank
tonight
you.
about what will be added to the online packet. So item 13, future dates and agenda items. I don't know if anyone heard, but we're having a meeting on June 28th. So there'll be a couple items on the agenda. We should probably meet around noon. But nonetheless, the meeting will take place Tuesday, June 28th, 7:30. I thought it appropriate when Doug and I were preparing the agenda that we just include some of the things that will be on the agenda to keep ourselves aware as what's coming, and not just sort of awaiting what the packet may share with us on Friday before. We'll be holding our annual school choice vote, which will be a public hearing, asking the community to provide any comment that may be open, but the school committee needs to vote every year whether we are going to open Wakefield Public Schools as a school choice school district or not. That will occur on the 28th. We'll have a discussion and vote on successor employee unions, union contracts. As I mentioned earlier, that's certainly not a commitment, but we are in a very good place to be able to do that, so we should certainly plan for it. I believe that the assistant superintendent will have a curriculum update for us.
Yes, two.
Two curriculum updates for us, good.
Indigenous Curriculum Task Force update, and then upcoming ELA curriculum review.
Terrific. And what is also timely for questions that Ms. Lehman asked, and both Doug and Kara responded to, we will be voting on the 3-level student handbooks, elementary, Galvin, and.
They will be reviewing.
We're not going to be voting on them?
I don't think that's possible.
Okay, so we will
That's
be
just-
reviewing them then.
I think that would be, yeah.
That
Unless
would
the
be
committee-
very aggressive.
That would be, yeah.
Okay.
Take the summer to peruse.
Well,
So the plan, so I know we had said the plan was to get, the initial plan was to get the handbooks by this meeting. And then, if possible, vote on them in the next meeting. But we don't have them, right?
If possible, I'd like the handbooks to sit with the policy subcommittee
Yeah.
for a round or so. I feel like what has happened in the past is we do sort of a washover of all of the handbooks at once. I think if we could sort of split them out between the 3 subcommittee members, taking elementary, middle, and high, it's what we had talked about previously in subcommittee, and just do a little bit more of a comprehensive look at it, especially as it's come into its new format, and sort of lay it against some of our policies and make sure that that it's a little more crisp and that it should be. It's gone through a nice iteration, but I think it'd be good to have some more focused eyes on it, and then we can come back and sort of report, hopefully more comprehensively.
Great. Well, I think that's a terrific idea. Dr. Lyons, you concur with that? So let's then plan on that the meeting on the 28th will revise our notes to have a report or an update about where we stand with student handbooks. And certainly the new policy subcommittee has been convened effective an hour ago. So, or more, whatever time it is. But nonetheless, don't hesitate to convene a meeting at your convenience and proceed. Great. Any other items that committee members may have for suggesting future dates or agenda items? Yes. Ms. Lynn?
I was thinking about this time every year we get emails from students about their 8th grade civics projects.
Yes.
And I don't really know what the actual assignment looks like, But the ideas are always wonderful, so I didn't know if, and it doesn't necessarily have to be soon, but if Jason Pavey could come and maybe bring some of the students that ideas actually came to fruition. And I know Erin Creasos invited us to the high school one. Walton Field Day was that same day. So if we could just get an overview so we actually understand the emails we're getting and how much, some of them, we always answer the emails, but I'm not sure how far those ideas ever get. I don't know. No? Is that not a good idea?
Yeah, do you want me to have Jason Beebe email, not to sign him up, but I know they just presented on Friday all the civics projects in the field house, so he could maybe just give an overview of like what the civics project entails. Is that what you're asking?
And the 8th grade ones, because
in the 8th grade,
we
yeah.
get the
the high school ones were
and,
Friday, but you're talking about the 8th grade. Okay.
Yeah, some of them might actually happen.
Yeah.
I know there's a group working on one at the middle school.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen.
Definitely.
So
we can get you that overview.
It can be in September. It doesn't necessarily. We're not
No.
going to get our next
Jason.
round of emails till.
I think Jason has a lot of free time. He has only 2 non-seniors this year at this point, so he's got plenty of time to work. So I saw him at the civics presentation. But it was great. It was really, Stephen, I know you were there. It was really pretty impressive.
Do they do a separate 8th grade project and
Yeah.
a senior project?
Yeah.
They do 2 total. Okay.
They do 2. 8th grade and juniors. If I'm correct.
And it's part of the new standards. Yeah.
Excellent.
So whenever you want to.
No, I think that's a great idea. June 28th, the students will be out of school, so it may be hard
Yeah,
to
well, we
corral
can do
them back, but maybe not. Certainly.
Yeah, I don't know.
The rest,
I was thinking I would just have Jason just email the committee, here's what's been happening in 8th grade. Are you talking about presenting on the another presentation on the 28th?
I didn't say the 28th. It could be, but it would just be nice at some point to understand the projects behind the emails.
So maybe we could plan for an update to be emailed to the committee around what's happened and what's in place right now, and then next fall to kick off the year, we could do here's what you can expect with the civics projects for the year. Would that be good for everybody?
Yeah, you can talk to Jason.
Yeah, the other thing that might be helpful, and I had the same thought, although I didn't express it, was maybe next year, end of May, whatever it might be, prompt us to expect to receive some emails, to put us in that sort of mindset and maybe outline what some of the questions are, what's being asked of the students with regard to that, because I think Amy raises a good point. Without context, it's hard to hop right into what the student is asking of us or presenting to us, other than saying, "Oh, great idea, thanks for emailing."
And I do recall
It's
that
hard to
happening.
place
I
that.
think when the civics projects first started, I want to say like a couple of years ago, it was like an introductory to whoever was on the committee at that time, town council. Like you can expect to receive an email. Here's what it's all about. But that's good feedback because committee members turn over, and maybe every year I can follow up on that. Yep.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, item 14.
Oh,
school-
wait.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay, I could have
Kevin?
said during my closing comments. The one thing that's not on there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole separate agenda item, but something I've always really enjoyed is taking a moment to recognize, and maybe there are none, but anyone retiring, any
That will
teachers
be
or
our next
staff
meeting.
who are retiring. Is that planned for the
It
next
is.
meeting? Perfect.
It is.
I was going to ask that question.
Okay,
I know
great.
I'm not supposed to speak, but.
You can sit over there. I was texting this guy really happy.
So yes, that will be
Excellent.
part of the, right. That's why we need to meet at noon. Maybe we need to meet.
I know, this is looking like a big
Breakfast
agenda.
But it's worth it, I like that, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, school committee comments going around the room. But start at this end today. Kevin Fontanella.
On Saturday I took that charting the course, which was the school committee orientation that I think we're all supposed to take. So that was interesting. I actually, I've been a teacher for a while, so I kind of thought I knew everything, but I actually learned like quite a few new things I did not know. So so that was great. And yeah, I did want to give a shout out to the track team. I coached track for a number of years, and the fact that the boys track team won the Division III divisional championships, unbelievable all-state performance, and the girls track team I think placed 5th in divisionals. Was like really great accomplishment. And yeah, that's it. That's it for me.
Excellent. Stephen?
Yeah, I'd again say thank you to the logo committee. It was great to hear the students talk about it in such a positive light that they thought it was such a great experience. So I think sort of when you sit in policy and sort of to what you were saying, Kevin, you draft something, you don't really necessarily see what it's going to be, but to have the students sort of sit there and appreciate the experience was great. I did want to sort of give a shout out to the civics projects because I did go, and they were fantastic. And so just in no particular order, just a few things that students want to talk about. School start times, recycling, lights on Walsh Field. They don't want a gym requirement. They want to require teaching of Juneteenth, appropriate this month. School lunches and nutritional value, lower gas prices, getting rid of MCAS, ending the civics requirement, and mental health and food insecurity. Also, sexual harassment was under that. And the basic premise of it, which it was find a problem, what's your premise, who are you going to talk to about it, and what's your outcome. What I often saw, they were talking with everyone. They were talking with state officials, local town government, DPW, school administrators. I think, why can't I think of our food services person? Danielle. I get her mixed up with Deirdre sometimes. So anyway. Just seeing them reach out, what I was taken aback by at the end of almost every single one of those was that they sort of felt like they hit a brick wall, because they do. They hit a process. They hit government, and we move at a glacial pace. And so for students whose lives are just like boom, 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 they don't get that instant gratification. It probably comes from heavy usage of social media. And so I feel a little bit bad for them. What I would love Jason or Erin Chrysos to come in, because I talked to both of those individuals at the presentations. I would love for them to come and talk to us. But I don't want the students to send emails. I want them to sit in front of us and talk about their case. And I would throw that out to the teachers as a means of contact. By all means, take a seat at the table and sort of tell us what you're thinking about. There was some really good ideas. I really appreciated the school start times. I appreciated the food insecurity, and of course the kids that said, I don't want to do this anymore, this requirement or this. The one that was matched well with, I don't think gym should be a requirement. There was somebody on the other side of the room that said, I think the town should fund a free gym membership for students.
Yes. That was one of the nets, Mandy Net.
Yeah. So it was really nice to sort of bounce around the room. A great process. I want to catch up on the 8th grade civics and see what they're doing. But by the time you hit juniors, it was great. And they did a round robin sort of things. Other classes came down and sort of there was honest engagement. Students were talking to others about their projects. It was great. It was just awesome. I was fortunate because the Woodville Field Day was on the high school field, so I could just bounce from the field house to, and so I was doing double duty. It was great, volunteering and then listening. It was a good day. So that's awesome. Aside from that, there will be a Juneteenth flag raising tomorrow night at the library at 6 p.m. And then the high school's Black Student Union is holding a Juneteenth picnic on the 17th, which is Friday. 3 to 7. I think previously I had thought it was Saturday. I'm incorrect in that. It is Friday, 3 to 7. And that's all I have. And I hope everyone has a great summer.
That's at that location for
Oh, I'm sorry. Lower Common.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. At the bandstand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go to the gazebo. We don't have one. Bandstand would be where it's located. And so I hope all the educators and staff and everyone and students have a great summer.
Great, thank you. Amy?
Thank you. I don't know. I'm still listening to Stephen.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. No, it's all good. And I was just going to thank the local committee for coming out, and also we got a couple emails. I know it was about the 8th grade moving on, and then hearing from the 8th grade students with their civics projects. And I do appreciate when community members and students reach out, because part of our job is listening, and I don't know everything that's going on, so it's helpful when people do reach out and share. So thank you.
Great. Kevin?
Now I know why everyone, when you go last, it's hard because Stephen basically took most of the stuff that I was going to say. So if you can start here the next time, that'd be great. We'll go back and forth at least. But I appreciate the invitation to be a part of that day. I too was able to make it. I saw Kevin there as well. And between that and graduation and some of the art opportunities, it especially if you don't have an opportunity all the time to interact with those that we're hoping to serve. So to be able to see students in that environment and have conversations about what they're doing, how they're feeling, but then in this case, some of their academic work was really, really fun. I agree. It was a great time. So I appreciated the invitation and would be open to more, like when certainly possible, if it makes sense, to have us be there, because it just informs, I think, our work in ways that, these packets don't. To actually be there is really valuable. And then lastly, our meeting will be after the conclusion of the year, and it was a tough year, for people, and it was tough to be a student. It was tough to be an employee, and the fact that we were have a normal-ish year was only due to the incredible work by everybody, from everyone, our senior leadership here, and then certainly the teachers and staff that each day came in under very difficult circumstances, and I think just had a fantastic year. So I hope everyone has an opportunity to take this time, if they can, in whatever ways they can, to recharge, refresh, and just know that we're incredibly grateful for all the work that they did each day to make this school year possible. And so it's a well-deserved vacation or time off if they're able to. I know not everybody is, but for those that are able to get any time, I hope they are able to take it and do so knowing the appreciation that we have for what they've done this year. So thank you.
Eileen?
Well, how do I follow that now? I don't know how to follow. No, I wanted to thank the police chief, for coming in tonight, because very timely, and I know that it's on the forefront of a lot of our parents' minds. So I wanted to thank him for that. And then wanted to just give 2 quick shout outs. Since the last time we met, I have attended a couple different community events, I guess. Matilda at the Galvin Middle School put on, which was fantastic. So I wanted to give a shout out to everyone involved with that. That was great. And the 4th grade all-town chorus concert that I attended. My twin sons were there, and it was just an awesome event, and the music teachers are just wonderful, and it was great. It was great to all be together, too.
Indeed. Mike?
Yep, a couple of things. So I echo what Stephen said about those civic projects being impressive. I think one of my disappointments was that more than half of the kids that I talked to said that they had reached out to people for more information and they got no responses back, which is really unfortunate, whether it's state and local agencies, companies, whatever. So that, it was probably 75% of the kids just didn't get a response back. So that's unfortunate, but the projects were great. We had a CPAC meeting yesterday, and CPAC did a survey of all the parents to nominate superheroes, and they got 61 nominations. 61 teachers, educators, paras were nominated as superheroes. It's so impressive to have that many. It's incredible. And I'll remind you guys again, but on July 26th, they're going to have a pop in for a popsicle. Going to do it at the Galvin. They'll have summer school, and they'll do it afterwards there. We're also working on trying to get them not-for-profit, nonprofit status, so they can start raising more funds and they don't have to pay taxes. So, but I'll obviously talk to Amy about how she wants to handle that assignment going forward. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Do you have something to add? Dr. Lyons?
Well, I think, this is our last meeting before the end of the year, right? And so, again, I know Kevin said this, Dr. Piscadlo pointed out the thanks that we owe to our faculty and staff. Again, there's close to 600 employees that serve 3,400 students and families. And so we couldn't do all that we do and get the outcomes that we are able to get without the support of so many. So we're we're grateful, grateful to our food service people, to our custodians, to our bus drivers. There's so many people that make this go. To our nurses, which I feel like we don't talk about a whole lot anymore because COVID has kind of fallen by the wayside, but they're still working double time to help kids figure out if it's flu, if it's COVID, how to get tested, and there's just so many and just so much thanks that we need to give. But I think I speak for all of the administrators when I say I think we're grateful to be in Wakefield and grateful to be able to do this work, and we want to say thank you.
Great. Thank you, Doug. And I would just concur really with what everyone said. You've all, excuse me, summarized it so incredibly well and passionately about everything that we heard tonight, as well as the challenges of the entire year and the style, the grace, the professionalism, and the love that everyone put in to make this year happen. So I concur with what everyone has said, and thank you all for saying it so well. Without any further ado, motion to adjourn.
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, June 14th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Good night, everyone.